Am I the asshole for yelling at my brother-in-law after he woke me up and told me to make dinner while we were staying at his house? I, 39 female, and my husband Tom, 37 male, and our 2 sons, 12 male, were recently in a house fire and lost our home, but were lucky that we were all out of the house when this happened. Tom's brother Sean, 40 male, and his wife agreed to let us stay at his place with their kids while we sort out insurance. I don't like Sean, as he believes in a traditional gender roles in the household. We've had issues since he realized I would keep my maiden name at work, which I informed him was none of his business and my personal choice. He works full-time, and his wife is a housewife. When we had our sons, Sean thought that I would quit my job as a doctor and become a stay-at-home mum. However, Tom became a stay-at-home dad instead, and then went back to work after our son went to school and doesn't share the same thought process as Sean. Sean clearly disapproves of this and me and vocalized his thoughts about the situation. I got Tom to speak to Sean, and he has left us alone since, but occasionally used to make comments at holidays and birthdays about it, which I ignored. They stopped when Tom returned to work, and since then, Tom says Sean has grown as a person. Tom and Sean are very close, and I would never tell him to stop talking to him, but I personally interact as little as possible with Sean. My son's school and Tom's workplace are walking distance from Sean's house, which is why I agreed to stay and to suck it up while we get back on our feet, as it is temporary. Yesterday was a very hectic day at work, and I was exhausted. My shift ended midday, and I went straight to bed. Everyone was out of the house. Sean and Tom went to work, the kids were at school, and Sean's wife went to see a friend. Sean got home first and woke me up. I was upset and still tired, and when I asked him why, he said that I should make a start on dinner as it was getting late and his wife was out and not picking up her phone. Usually I do the cooking in the house with his wife, but I was upset that Sean had woken me up and yelled at him to not disturb me. I kicked him out of the room and told him that I was going back to sleep and he could sort out his own dinner. When I woke up that evening, Sean told me that while I was under his house, I needed to respect his house rules. I told him he could have cooked himself, heated leftovers in the fridge, or just gotten takeout. Tom thinks that Sean did overstep by waking me up and making demands, but I shouldn't have yelled and escalated the situation. Piss off, Tom. Sean shouldn't have started the situation in the first place. Doctors work long shifts. That probably was like a 12-hour shift that you just got off. You're sleeping at midday only to be shaken awake by some idiot. I'd be rightfully pissed off too. I bet Sean knowingly did this to get a rise out of OP and then create a situation so he could feel in the right because these traditional gender roles aren't being fulfilled. Sean absolutely knows what he's doing. He's being a dickhead in this situation, not the arsehole OP. I don't think you did anything wrong here. In the comments, MD Thomas says, quote, Sean told me that while I was under his house, I needed to respect his house rules. Normally, I agree with this sentiment. However, rules I think of generally refer to keeping clean and respecting property. Making a rule strictly on your gender is unreasonable. You are not obligated to cook every day for a grown man, not the asshole. My house, my rules is for take off your shoes before stepping on the carpet, not for you're not allowed to sleep because your vagina means you owe me dinner. Even asking to make dinner can be a reasonable request. The problem is it wasn't a request, he ordered her like she's a pet monkey. If he wanted certain expectations as part of the stay, it needed to be discussed beforehand, and her husband should have been included so the husband or wife could decide on who does what. It's not a reasonable request when you're an able-bodied adult and when the person you're asking isn't your partner. OP's only obligation is to her own children, though whichever of the 4 adults does the cooking should feed all the kids, of course. She's also not a stay-at-home mum. She's a doctor who just got off a long shift and needed sleep. Staying at his house doesn't mean he gets to interrupt the existing sleep schedule that is dictated by her extremely important job. Wow, a fully capable adult waking up another adult to get her to make dinner for him. That is so mind-blowingly rude and ridiculous. I really wanted to say something about how if you could have been calmer, that would have been better, but I just can't imagine how you could get pulled out of sleep and calmly explain to this walking anachronism that he is capable of using a microwave. You are just 100% not the asshole. Update. I didn't expect so many responses and have read quite a few. I spoke to a friend who said that we are always welcome at hers. I told my husband that I was leaving with the kids, and he was welcome to join me or stay at Sean's. My brother-in-law didn't tell my husband the whole story and said I just flat out refused to cook and then yelled at him out of tiredness when one of the conditions on us staying was that we would cook and help around the house. I was upset that my husband believed Sean, but he didn't have the full story. In our culture, we place a big emphasis on respecting elders, and I know I feel uncomfortable opposing elder relatives on my side of the family, so I get why my husband does struggle. This experience has made me put down my foot though, and I've told my husband that I don't want our sons anywhere near him. I think this has also been an eye-opener for my husband, and he's agreed to move out with me, although brother-in-law asked him to stay. When we get our place sorted, only sister-in-law and my kids' cousins will be allowed over. My sister-in-law has called to apologize for brother-in-law's behavior, and I've not heard from him at all. He was silent to me and only talked to my husband and the kids. I only agreed to move in with brother-in-law as I believed he had changed in his beliefs and it had been a few years since our last fight, but apparently not. Also, the house belonged to my husband's late parents and he owns half of it. With our insurance, they have finally ruled the fire as a faulty electrical in our kitchen, so we will get a place of our own by Friday. Thank you everyone for the support in the comments. In the comments, KMA1391 says, brother-in-law needs to get his shit together and learn that all women are not his servants. Wow, what a clown. The woman is a doctor. Her medical skills are way more valuable than her cooking skills. If she needs rest after a long shift, brother-in-law can make his own dinner. Dang, I was already on her side before you pointed out the little blip that I missed of what she did for a living. Would have been on her side no matter what her job was, but extra on her side now. What on earth made this jerk think that she would give up her job as a doctor just because she got married and had kids? I realize some women do put their medical career on hold, but I have to think that they're probably in the minority. Lamau? He really thinks that he has the right to tell OP it's his house when her husband owns half of it? Yeah, I'd be like, half of the house is my husband's. You obey my rules so fast. Well, I hope her husband keeps up with his word and does not allow this man inside their house. Sean thinks her husband owns her, not the other way around, so the house being her husband's doesn't matter. Sean's male half property ownership trumps her existence, and she should get in the kitchen. Oh god, so unhinged to say that. Would I be the asshole if I go on a vacation with my mum instead of attending my father's wedding? So my, 26 male, parents, 44 female and 45 male, have been high school sweethearts. My mum got pregnant straight out of high school. My mum has always supported my dad through everything. She worked double shifts so that dad can start a business and earn a significant amount of money. She never splurged on luxury goods, and even after my dad started his successful business, my mum saved and encouraged him to invest more in his business. And how does my lovely dad decide to thank her? He screws a woman who is only 1 year older than I am. They have been divorced for 3 years, and my dad publicly started dating his mistress without any shame. My siblings have a sort of strained relationship with him. I never talked to him after the divorce. I hate to acknowledge his existence, and hate it even more that he seems to think that he did nothing wrong. He's getting married to his mistress in 10 days. I can tell Mum is still hurt by the divorce. She's going to Romania, where her parents were born. She always insisted that my dad take her there, but since my dad was busy cheating on her, he just never took her. I also wanted to go with her because I need an excuse to avoid the wedding altogether. My siblings told me that if I don't attend the wedding, they wouldn't go as well. My dad has been on my neck and trying to guilt-trip me into attending his wedding, but I already booked the tickets to Romania. My relatives are saying that if I don't go, I will be disrespecting my dad. I don't think that he deserves an ounce of respect from me. Plus, I'm pretty sure their marriage wouldn't last more than 2 years, considering how much she spends just to show off. I would rather be with my mum. Well, if that's the case, I don't see how you could be an asshole here. Your dad cheated, your siblings are not on his side, but your extended family seems to be. Screw them. They saw this entire thing transpiring, and yet they're still on his side. They're probably not people that you should be taking advice from or associating with, in all honesty. I say stick to your guns, and going to Romania is absolutely fine. Not the asshole for this position that you're sticking to. In the comments, Shanghai Rolls says, go with your mum. If anyone did any disrespecting, it was your dad by having an affair. Although if you still want to have a good relationship with your dad, then you'd better think it through and discuss it with your siblings. How these people have the audacity to overlook how disrespectful the dad is beyond me. They seem happy giving their opinions to OP about what is disrespectful, but not to their shameful relative. Oh my god, go to Romania with your mum. Your dad sounds like an absolute piece of shit. You don't owe him anything after what he did. Support your mum, be there for her. Don't listen to his flying monkeys. They can F off. Have fun in Romania. Yeah, support your mum and go to Romania. You're right, your dad doesn't deserve much respect, at least right now. Marrying someone essentially the same age as his kid should have consequences. Not the asshole. An asshole would show up at a wedding they do not approve of. She is in your age group. She should be dating one of you or your buddies, not your dad. Have a great trip with your mom and explore your heritage. Respect is earned, and your father doesn't deserve your respect. A wedding invitation is not a summons, and you have every right to say no. Good for you for supporting your mum during this. Perhaps after your vacation, you and all your siblings could do something together with your mum as well. You could always just tell your dad that you'll go to wedding number 5. Back up to the post, we have an edit. Thank you, people. I see that most people think that I'm not doing anything wrong. I am packing my bags for Romania. I was very skeptical. I wanted people to guide me if I was doing wrong. Thanks to those people, I am even stronger in my decision. I appreciate your feedback. And now, onto the update. My post was removed by Reddit for whatever reason. I don't know. I don't know if they'll allow me to post an update, but it's worth a shot. So I am in Romania with my mum and girlfriend. Just landed 36 hours ago. My dad's wedding is cancelled. According to my siblings, my dad wanted his girlfriend to sign a prenup. She refused. It turned into a huge fight between him and her. They fought in the rehearsal dinner too. He decided to postpone the wedding until the matter is solved. I don't think this wedding will ever happen. I'm glad he is learning the truth of his value. I haven't told my mum yet. She seems happy here, so I don't want to ruin that. I might tell her today at dinner. My siblings are fine. I just wish I could have taken them with us. Also, to those people who defended my cheating father and told me that it's not my business, I hope each and every one of you suffer from what my mum, my siblings, and I went through. It wasn't easy. He betrayed not just my mum, but all of our family. He was a selfish old man who wanted his cake and to eat it too. I am 100% allowed to be mad at him for destroying our family, for his dick, destroying my mum, and her self-esteem like that. And those who are calling me a mama's boy, I hope your mum sees this and thinks what kind of unappreciative child she gave birth to. I love my mum. She gave birth to me and took care of me when I wasn't able to do that. Now it is my turn to support her. Adios. In the comments, Glitter Doomsday says, that will sound mean, but if he thinks he'll get a younger wife that was cool being the side piece by pushing prenups, he's in for a rude awakening. It's like it never occurs to some of these old dudes that their much younger partners are only with them for money. The only ones who seem to realize it are the guys with sugar babies. Both parties recognize that it's a transactional relationship. Exactly right. That's the only reason she agreed to marry the old fart. Now he realizes that he's nothing but an ATM for her, and without her access to his money, he's no good for anything else. Karma came back and bit him on the butt. Have a great vacation, and your mum is lucky to have her children's support. Dude, those that are defending your adulterous father are also so weird. So glad you guys decided to go with your mother and show her support. OP replies, they are still sucking him off and wishing him well, as if he's some kind of a saint. I just found one in this comment section. He's been the same scummy, cheating dad since the last post. The comment says, I do wonder how close to the wedding the dad brought up the prenup. Great point. I'm guessing the night before? I cackled when I read the reason the wedding was called off. Terrible takes by commenters, who seemingly have no idea what human relationships are like. Of course, the kids, adult or otherwise, were impacted by this and have valid personal reasons to hate this cheating son of a bee. Glad OP chose their mum. It's completely the right thing to do. There was a user who made the second negative comment that has been harassing OP and said some awful misogynistic things about his mum. Like, whenever a man leaves a boring old hag for a hot new thing, it is always an upgrade. Thank God his comments were removed. He was constantly harassing OP and his mum. Presumably that username was chosen because that's what he was hit by as a child and caused his brain damage. I mean, having a negative karma comment against OP is not unusual, but the way this guy was doubling down to supporting the dad and criticizing OP's mom, I started to think this guy is OP's dad. Or did the same as OP's dad and is living with the consequences. Ding ding ding. One of the things that have surprised me is how little reasoning people put into their morality and how willing they are to flip it to make them feel better about their actions. Well, what can you say about that? Feel like that's a pretty spot-on comment right there. Friendly reminder to you guys, don't go cheating on your wife that has been there with you all this time for someone much younger. That ain't cool. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys think of this one down in the comments below. Let me know. Our next post is by user Beneficial Deal 6849, titled, "Am I the asshole for not correcting my mother with dementia's racist and homophobic remarks towards my partner?" So my 28, mother 66, suffers from dementia. I warned my partner 29 that she has no filter and is extremely racist and homophobic, which are all the reasons why I've not introduced them to my mum. I have personally learned to accept the behavior, as trying to argue, rationalize, and/or correct non-physically harmful behavior is just not worth it. She will apologize and then forget 5 minutes later, so I've just learned to live with it. Her doctors are also in agreement that it is wasted effort to try and correct such behavior. Though my partner insisted on meeting her, I once again explained why I am against it, but they were dead set on meeting my mum. So we went to meet her, and my mum did what my mum does. My partner was crying and got upset with me because I didn't even try to defend and correct her. I explained that it was a waste of time, and I told you all of this beforehand. They did not expect it to be so scathing. I said my mum does have a sharp tongue. My partner continued to question my actions for tolerating such behavior. I simply replied that she's my mum who is sick. Then I started to make jokes about it, and this upset them greatly. I just left it as if I do not laugh, I will cry. They kept trying to harp on it, calling me a failure of a partner to allow such things to fly. I tried to tell them that I explained all of this beforehand, yet you still insisted. You think that I really was going to go through the effort to try and correct the actions of someone that barely knows who they are half the time? I told them I already tried to fight that war for years early on in this journey, and it was just too painful. I had a choice to make, learn to accept it or never see my mum again. I love my mum, so I picked the latter. I thought that this was the end of it, but it happened to come up again at a dinner that we had with some friends. Pretty much everyone at the table called me, and quote, the worst type of person, simply because I did not think that it was worth the effort to try to correct the behavior. One even said that I should disown my mother. I left after that. So am I the asshole for not correcting the behavior and for downplaying the seriousness of the issue? Did I overreact when I left the dinner? Should I have done more to protect the feelings of my partner? This is a genuinely impossible situation for you, but I feel as though you've made all the right choices, you took all the precautions necessary to pad the damage from a situation like this, and I don't think you've done anything wrong here. Your partner knew exactly what they were signing up for. They knew that you were extremely hesitant and why you were so scared about it because you couldn't control this, because doctors had told you to give up, yet your partner decides to throw themselves into this anyway. I don't know why your partner wasn't expecting the leopard to eat their face when you said, look, the leopard in there is dangerous, there's nothing we can do about it, and if you go in there, the leopard will eat your face. God, I'm just so upset at you, OP, for not doing anything to stop the leopard from eating my face. How dare you not correct the leopard's behavior? Like, yes, I absolutely agree with your friends and I agree with your partner that her actions and her behaviors are completely unacceptable. But unfortunately, with dementia, there's nothing you can do about it. That person is disappearing before your eyes. It's tragic enough that they're pretty much already gone, but to ask OP to completely abandon their mother while this is going on and just disown her, I feel like that is incredibly selfish and damaging. I don't know how many people could make the choice opposite of what OP did and maintain that choice. Human emotions are hard. Anyway, my vote is not the asshole. Now in the comments, TR Isidin says, a lot of people don't understand what it's like to have a loved one with dementia. There is absolutely nothing you can do, and it generally only gets worse over time. You did your best to explain to your partner, and they chose not to heed your warning. Everything that happened as soon as they opened that door is on them, not you. Dementia sucks. I'm sorry your partner doesn't understand this. Maybe there is a dementia not-for-profit they can go to for some educational sessions. So true. This is what I would like to say to your partner. OP is going through hell, and if you can't understand this and support them, walk away now. Dementia is the constant, ongoing piecemeal loss of the person that you love. The grief is constant. You learn to cope and accept, as OP is doing, but you can't just work through it, because there is always something new to mourn, some new change or decline, and there is nothing to hope for. No cure, no improvement, only the death of the person that you love so much. It may have hurt for you to hear what OP's mother said. Don't you think that it hurts OP too? OP isn't choosing to let someone abuse you. OP is coping with someone they love very much, whose illness makes her incapable of not being awful to the both of you. This isn't about you, OP's partner. Please step up and find some empathy for someone you supposedly care about who is going through a quiet, daily hell. DG Showgirl replies, you framed that so well. I just spent 2 weeks at home with Mum and visited my grandmother with Alzheimer's every single night. My 3-year-old has more compassion and understanding of disease process than OP's sorry excuse for a partner. Every night, my kid asked to come along with me. Every night, they answered the same 3 questions over and over and over. When later telling my dad/my husband about the visits, who couldn't come with, they say, it's so much fun. Mum brings chocolate and Nan keeps checking my name and birthday because she forgets when we tell her new things. She tells the same stories, but has really pretty flowers. Do you want us to send you photos? I'd be telling the partner that until they are willing to gain a basic understanding of this debilitating, fatal disease and are across leading treatment methods, which absolutely include don't argue or correct them, you will not be discussing this further. OP is not the asshole. And now, onto the update. Edit for a quick update to comment on some of the things that I've read. Before anything, I appreciate the kind words, advice, and stories. I know I am not alone in this, but it's still nice to hear it from others. Secondly, I understand the criticism behind my actions and inaction. I get the idea. I do not agree with it, but I get it. My mother is not going to remember. What is the harm about correcting her this one time to show support for my partner? I will say the same thing I told my partner. We can go home. Done. We can dust our hands of the interaction and be on our merry way. Problem is, this is not about how we may feel about what was said or how we feel we should go about it. Our feelings in situations such as these are largely moot. I have zero right to stir up the hornet's nest and then just to leave and let the staff handle the backlash. That shows complete disrespect and disregard for the staff, the other residents, and my mother. I can see the criticism to this comment. You care more about their feelings. To be honest, in this situation, yeah, because they are doing me the favor of caring for my mum. Sure, I pay for the care, but they treat her with respect and dignity. Why shit on that and make their jobs even harder because my partner wanted to play with fire? I have seen it personally far too many times when families would simply leave after their loved one got upset by something they did and could have avoided and let the staff deal with it. Their jobs are hard enough as is. I have no right to make shit harder and just leave. Leaving all of that aside, it is frickin' advised by most medical professionals, live in their moment. Correcting non-violent, especially verbal behavior, is simply not worth the effort and the potential complications about forcibly altering their reality in that moment. Dementia is often about maintaining comfort and safety. The fact some people on this sub willfully would ignore medical advice because it goes against what they feel is baffling to me. Racism is a learned behavior. You can have one set of views at one stage in your life and a vastly different one in another stage. Dementia does not care. It will draw information from whatever experience it wants. One day, my mum is living in a reality where she was working her way through college, babysitting and giving piano lessons. Others, she is a little girl hanging with her dad working on locks. He was a locksmith. Sometimes she thinks of me as my father who died when I was a child. It is all over the place. My mother was raised by racist Fs. And yeah, when she was younger, she bought into it too. That is all she knew and was exposed to. She told me the stories. It was only until she got older and was living on her own that she saw how hurtful and wrapped that ideology was. So no, my mum is not racist. Her comments are racist and homophobic, but she is not. For all those saying that she is, people change. The thing about dementia is that it changes people. For the record, I am mixed race, so trust me, early on it was rough for me to listen to the shit that my mum was saying. Now, this criticism I fully understand. I should not have joked about the situation, but humor is really all I got at this point to cope. What else could I have said? I told you so? Question why they willfully wanted to play with fire? If I didn't try to play it off with jokes, I would have said something that would have most definitely added vinegar and salt to an open wound. My joke was a means of trying to lighten the mood. I will be frank that in that moment, it was hard for me to have sympathy for my partner as for what was said to them, because I warned them countless times. I pleaded with them that it was not a good idea. I told them I appreciate the thought, but you don't have to. It is not worth it. They kept insisting, and I just caved. Should I have kept saying no? Probably, but even if I did, 100% they would still be insisting. In the end, I figured, hey, maybe they will be understanding and things would work out. Maybe my mum will see past it since they would be side by side with me. I was foolish and just came up with any idea I could to validate their desire to meet my mum. I forgot who it was, but I will stop using the phrase. She does not have a filter because it implies that she was always this way but knew to hide it. Even if that was not the intent, I appreciate it. I'm also going to save the stories from the comments as they warmed my heart. That is, before I leave this thread, to hopefully fade into the ether of Am I the Asshole? Please try to see past black and white. Oftentimes things are not that simple. Life is complex, and to simply boil it down to person X is bad because of Y does not do anyone justice in situations such as these. My son, 17, found a sex tape of my wife and I, 35 female and 40 male, and now our kids are freaking out and are not talking to us. So to make a long story short, my wife and I have an unconventional sex life, and our teenage son found one of our sex tapes while using my laptop without permission. He has his own computer, so I don't know why he was on mine. My wife and I were sitting at the table going through some bill payments on her laptop, and my daughter, 15, was on her laptop in the living room, which is attached to the kitchen. My son stormed down the stairs and into the kitchen, where he proceeded to start yelling at us over how sick we are. We had no idea what was happening, and our daughter got mad and asked what was going on, and he started yelling about what he found. This set my daughter off, and my wife became hysterical, and everyone began screaming at each other. I was so shocked and embarrassed by what was happening that I just remained quiet at first, but I put an end to the fighting and told everyone to split up and cool off, which they did. I told my wife we should talk about this with them, but she said she cannot possibly face them over how mortified she is. I want to try and say something anyway, but my kids were having none of it and wouldn't even look at me. Since then, our kids have barely communicated with us and are not coming out of their rooms except for school and extracurriculars. We are making dinners which are being eaten in silence and in different rooms. It's been almost a week and I feel like I need to do something, but my wife keeps begging me not to bring it up and my children won't even look at me. What should I do? Honestly, depending on what's on the video, just talk to them and explain the situation. If it's something that's not too out of the ordinary, I can't imagine that's too hard of a conversation to have with your teenage kids who understand this world that people would delve into. Or maybe they don't understand them, but I think communication is necessary, as awkward and as odd as it is. I understand your wife's fears and hesitation, absolutely, but you can't just not talk about this indefinitely. This will be an elephant that continues to expand in the room until the room explodes. In the comments, Massive Dumbass says, "What's conveniently not mentioned is what was on the video, because I bet a lot of these comments would be different if we knew exactly what it was. As an adult, this is absolutely hysterical, and I wouldn't know how to react to my kids. As a child, this is horrifying. It depends on how weird the sex was. Butt stuff, whips and handcuffs, get over it. Live fish play, I'm going to assume your comment about think swinging but not quite starts with a C and ends with olding. If that's the case, I do believe you may have lost your son's trust and respect forever, no matter how many speeches you're going to give him or how many Redditors you're going to insist that it was none of his business. The truth of the matter is, his business or not, he found your tape, and now you have to deal with the consequences. The fact that your daughter is also upset, and she hasn't even watched your family home videos, don't call them that, Jesus, speaks volumes of the gravity of the situation. Sure, you can believe other comments that they are teenagers, they are hormonal, and they don't know anything about sex, but you would be massively wrong. A boy at your son's age knows more about sex today than you did when you were his age. Boys talk, they exchange information, he knows the bees and the birds by now. Hell, at his age, he probably had sex himself. Your daughter knows what sex is as well, and girls exchange way more information than boys do. They are upset because the fetish I am assuming you were involved in, captured in your little home video, is going to ruin his trust in you. At his age, he expects different things from you, and what he saw does not do well in your favor. All kids know their parents have sex. It's one thing to see your own folks have sex, and a whole other thing to see this fetish. So no, your kids are not upset that their parents are having sex. Well, your wife is having it, not you. Trying to ridicule your kids will not work and will damage your relationship further. The idea to make jokes on their behalf, that you want to know if they're going to remain in their rooms for long so you can invite your friends over, is horrible. Worse than that, you found the idea funny in the comments below. It speaks volumes that your wife is embarrassed about it as well. You guys messed up. It doesn't matter if it was your laptop. If you think that you can solve this by shifting blame around, by trying to frame this as, you shouldn't have looked through my laptop, or by trying to punish your kids somehow, well, all of these will backfire spectacularly. And now onto the update. In my last post, I got some great advice and some laughably terrible advice, but I followed some of the former to initially good effect. After some back and forth with the wife, I put my foot down and decided that we were going to have a sit down as a family and talk this out. She was quite upset, but I told her this would be best. I texted everyone in the morning, as I start work early, to let them know to come home on time today because we need to clear the air and have a proper adult discussion, not disappearing into bedrooms. My daughter agreed, and so did my son, although he had the condition that it not be in the living room, which was fine. Everyone did as I asked, and we held the family meeting in the kitchen. It started off quite awkward, and I began by reminding them the importance of respecting people's privacy. I told them that no one is in trouble, but I was very disappointed at my son's actions, and said how he could have handled what happened with more discretion. My kids did not like this initially, and they said some disrespectful things, but I reprimanded them for it. And overall it was tense, but was as calm as it could be under the circumstances. I went on and essentially explained to them that consenting adults, especially those who are married and happy together, shouldn't be shamed for whatever they have decided that they enjoy. It is unfair to judge someone else, and they need to learn as they grow older that not everyone will adhere to what they think is normal. They can dislike something personally, but it is wrong to hate someone because of it. This is when it started to go south. My son started to get angry, but not just at us, but also his sister. She apparently told her best friend, who was also her cousin, who then told people at school. Apparently my son has been getting made fun of at school because of it, and he is obviously very upset. My wife became enraged at our daughter and quite hysterical, and I actually removed her from the situation. Not physically, but I told her to leave and cool off. I was upset too, but shouting wouldn't solve anything. I told my daughter that she was in deep trouble for doing that, and asked my son if he had told anyone, and he said no, which I believe. I took my daughter's phone and laptop as punishment, and I grounded her for until the end of the school year. But that's really just plugging a hole in the hull while the ship is on fire. She stormed off up to her room, which is where she will stay. I asked my son why he didn't mention anything to me about the bullying, and he told me that it was my fault, and he didn't want to talk to me at all. I asked what they were saying, but he wouldn't go into detail, just that they would call him names and throw things at him. Fruit, apparently. His friends were sticking up for him though, which I was happy to hear. He then said some very disrespectful things about me and his mother, which I understood because he was angry but I couldn't excuse, so I also took his electronics off him and grounded him. He still blamed me for the tape, but I told him that he wasn't in trouble for finding it, he was in trouble for being a disrespectful little shit. He stormed off to his room, which is where he too will stay for a while. I went upstairs to my wife and she was obviously extremely upset. I held her and she cried for a while and blamed herself before she eventually calmed down enough to talk. She realized that if the cousin knew, then my sister and her husband probably knew too. She was sobbing at the thought of them spreading this to our family. They're the religious type. And we decided to try and get ahead of this. I texted my sister asking her if she was free this weekend to stop by for coffee or something. She didn't reply immediately, though I know she saw my text, and eventually she responded saying that she rather wouldn't right now. So now my wife is depressed, saying that my family are going to hate her and shun us, and we would lose our community presence. I feel like I need to talk to my sister just to make sure what she knows and ask her to keep it to herself, even if I invite myself over. Does that seem like a good idea? Should I also talk to the school about my son and see if I can help at all? My daughter didn't mention any bullying, but she might be taking heat for this too. Also, we deleted all adult stuff that we had on the laptops, and then I spent a good hour or so figuring out how to encrypt files. Although my wife told me not to bother because it would never happen again. I'm also looking at family therapy because I want us to go and talk to a professional about it. In the comments, Spongrid says, "The punishments you are giving out are just throwing fuel on the fire. If you want to mend bridges, I'm afraid you are doing the opposite. The lessons you are teaching here are counter to your children's healthy development and are totally selfish. Your children are reacting as anyone would in this situation, and you are punishing them for it. They only have the values that you have taught them. You chose to risk the psychological health of your children in the name of your own sexual gratification. You left unquestionably traumatic material accessible in your house to your children, and you are punishing them for the trauma that they are experiencing as a result. You are punishing your daughter for seeking support from the only network she has, in a scenario where you have failed at being able to support her. She hasn't done anything wrong. You are only punishing her for your own humiliation. You are punishing your son for not tolerating the damage you've inflicted on his healthy emotional development. He hasn't done anything wrong. You are punishing him for inconveniencing your sex life. You've punished them both for being disrespectful, despite thoroughly earning the loss of their respect. Respect comes from being respectable, and you have failed. The lessons you are teaching them about where their emotional health ranks in your personal priorities will likely damage your relationship with them permanently. At no point have you taken personal responsibility for enabling this situation or acknowledged that you messed up. You left a time bomb in the family home, which you still don't seem to grasp the severity of, and now you're punishing your children for the impact it's having on them. You are worried about losing community presence when your children are most likely to suffer stunted emotional development. The health of their relationships with both you and their future romantic partners will be stunted by this. Instead of apologizing for exposing them to this, you doubled down on your right to do it and positioned yourself as the victim. You can't put this genie back in the bottle. Your children will be bullied. They will never look at you and your wife the same. This will impact their future relationships. You are punishing them as if it is their fault. Your reputation will be smeared. Your children and your wife will need both individual and family therapy. You must have known these risks when you created this material and then left it accessible in the home. You made a huge mistake that was always going to put yourself and your family at risk, and blaming your children for the fallout is the most narcissistic thing I've ever read. The first thing you need to do is have some humility, some appreciation for the development and well-being of the children in your care, and apologize for allowing this to ever possibly occur. The problems you are trying to solve are ones of limiting your own humiliation. Too late. Stop punishing your children for your mistake and take some responsibility for your actions. Work on the damage that you've done and are doing to them. In 20 years' time, that's the only thing that is going to matter. And now, onto the final update with extra problems. So I wasn't going to post anything more, especially after the reception my last post received. But it's very early, and I'm not doing anything for a while yet, so I decided to let everyone know how it all turned out. Sorry to disappoint, but I haven't offed myself. My children don't hate me, and my life isn't in ruins. So for those of you who have told me to neck myself, and everyone who decided that my relationship with my children was ruined forever, I sincerely pity how terrible a relationship you had with your parents, and hope that you never breed. Anyways, my last post yielded little advice, and consisted mostly of people telling me how screwed everything was. Shout out to the user Sabrina for actually giving me some advice. So I decided to just ignore you all and do what I thought was best. I went to see my sister on the Saturday morning, and when I arrived, she seemed surprised to see me but invited me in anyway. She explained that her shortness over text was because she was dealing with her own problems with her and my children. She told me that cousin was being bullied by my daughter at school, apparently for no reason. I realized it must be about her blabbing about the tape, so I explained the situation. Leaving out the contents of the tape, obviously, because I'm not stupid. She decided to punish her daughter for being disrespectful of someone indulging sensitive information, and we agreed that I would talk to my daughter about how wrong her behavior had been. Yes, she is religious, but she isn't insane and she doesn't judge me. I decided to let my kids stew without their electronics until Sunday while I helped my wife pull herself out of her shame spiral. After a long day of helping and supporting her, she seemed to snap out of it and slept peacefully for the first time since this all happened, which I was very grateful for. On the Sunday, we decided as a team to sit down with our kids and talk to them once again. We started with our daughter, as she seemed easier to deal with. We sat her down, and I explained to her what she did was similar to me reading her diary and then telling other people what was written in it. There is nothing wrong with having a diary, and there's certainly nothing wrong with what was written in it, but it is embarrassing to have others know. She understood the example and apologized. We then got onto the topic of the cousin and explained that while what cousin did was very wrong, she shouldn't be so hard on her and stop with the bullying. Our daughter agreed, although she said her friendship was done, and I said that was fair enough. We gave her back her electronics and reduced the grounding to a week. What she did was still wrong, and so requires punishment. We next called our son down and talked to him about why he was punished. His mother is his mother, and no child, regardless of the reason, has any right to talk to their mother the way he did. Same goes for me. He apologized for what he said, and then we talked about schools and if he wanted to change school. He was genuinely scared that we were going to switch his schools, and he explained that the bullying wasn't that bad. Just some loser kids who were throwing stuff at him and hassling him in the halls. My son is very well liked at his school and has many friends and loves his sports, so we decided not to move school. I did the same with him that I did with my daughter, and I gave him back his electronics. During the week, I got a call from his school that he had been in a fight and was facing suspension, so I went to the school, and it turns out he got fed up of harassment and beat up one of the bullies. The principal was talking serious punishment, but I told him to screw himself and explained that my son was standing up for himself against people who were using sensitive information to bully him. At the end of the day, it was decided that a series of detentions was more appropriate for both people involved, which we accepted as a compromise. I told my son that I was proud of him for standing up for himself and that he wouldn't get any punishment at home. As for the whole community finding out, well, it turns out that adults don't tend to believe children when they talk gossip. Shocking, I know. And that all is known is that my wife and I have a sex tape. So no one cares. Or at least no one we care about cares. So we are back to a sort of normal. The kids are talking to us again and eating dinner at the table, and we are all a lot calmer, if still a bit tense. In the future, we will be a lot more careful about this kind of thing. To address a few things from the last post, yes, the world isn't fair, but why should I then teach my children to contribute to that unfairness? Answer, I shouldn't. Why just punish the kids? What about your punishment? Lol, parenting isn't quid pro quo. The laptop did have a password on it. It was unlocked, as I had been using it barely 10 minutes earlier. There is nothing wrong, neither morally nor ethically, with recording a sex tape of consenting adults. People calling me and my wife degenerates can crawl back to whatever sad little hole they crawled out of. Anyway, I won't bother reading any replies to this, so spare me your vitriol. Just wanted you all to know that it worked out fine. In the comments, Haggis Lad says, "Holy damn, that is rough. But the one thing I can't get my head around is, who the hell wants to spread that sort of news about their parents around? I would be keeping quiet for somewhere just shy of eternity about that shit." What I gathered is that the daughter told the cousin, and the cousin told other people. And honestly, I can see my teenage self telling one close friend about a situation like this, if it happened to me. Yeah, I get the feeling the daughter and cousin were close friends before this, and the daughter trusted the cousin to keep a secret. That's why she reacted so bad. It was a massive betrayal to her. Agreed. She was processing out loud, with her closest friend, which is such a betrayal. My cousin did something like this to me, but I'm an adult and simply removed her from my life. That's a huge betrayal of trust. I think OP isn't really hearing that his kids will need some therapeutic support to process what was on that tape, especially since it involved extra people. I hope he gets them therapists to help them process. In the title, OP says, "sex tape of my wife and I," but later in the replies he says, "of people on it. I am not one of them." So technically OP lied in the title, and was it hot-wifing with more than one? I think he means that it's OP's and his wife's sex tape, as in it belongs to them and is for them to watch and be turned on. It sounds like OP filmed the tape of his wife with another guy, so he was still a part of it, even though he's not on camera, so it's their sex tape. Oh man, this whole time I was wondering what was on that tape and why he was so adamant not to meet in the living room. I'm glad that it was only a hot wife situation, unlike that poor other Redditor that walked in on her mum and dad doing it while wearing her clothes. Man, that'd be crazy. It'd be crazy to walk in on your mum and dad doing it on the couch. That would be insane. That would just ruin my night, honestly. Ah man, good times. Classic hits, that one. I bet that wouldn't traumatize you. I bet a story like that wouldn't make waves within a community. Am I the asshole for wanting to leave my boyfriend for something his parents said? So I, 26 female, black, and my boyfriend, 32 male, white, have been dating for about 5 months now, and he's honestly the best thing that ever happened to me. He is the first guy who has ever made me consider marriage and starting a family. I did love him. And now to the story. Last weekend was his mum's 60th birthday, and my boyfriend was going to go to the birthday party. He thought that it would be a nice occasion for him to introduce me to his family, so he asked me to join him. We let his family know that he was bringing me, and they were okay with it. His parents' place is 3 hours away from the city that we live in, so we decided that we were going to spend the night. So, we arrived at his parents' place, and his mum, dad, brother, and sister were there. They hugged me while greeting me, and I honestly thought they were genuinely happy to meet me. It didn't feel like anything was off. They all seemed like nice people. So we spent the evening talking, and there was a lot of laughter, and everything was going great. At around 8 p.m., my boyfriend and his brother leave for the airport to pick up a relative of theirs who was flying in for the party. So I'm left in the house with his mum, dad, and sister. I didn't feel unsafe or anything. They had been nice to me the whole time. I had left my phone charging in the room that we were going to sleep in, so I excused myself to go check if I had any important messages or calls. There weren't any, so it didn't take long. I start heading back to the living room, and as I'm walking back, I hear them talking, and then his mum asks, "So, what do you think about her?" I immediately knew they were talking about me, and I honestly wanted to know what my potential in-laws thought about me, so I stopped and listened. His dad says, "She's nice." His sister agrees with him and adds, "She's pretty too." And then his mum says something that immediately made me sick to my stomach. She says, "Yeah, if only she wasn't an effing N-word." And they all agreed with her. My heart dropped. I tiptoed back to the room, and I sat there so confused. I was shaking so much, I didn't know what to do. I wanted to call my boyfriend, but I had a weird feeling, so I didn't. I felt so alone and so unsafe. I felt like I couldn't trust anyone around me, not even my boyfriend. I live in Canada, and people here are not as open with their racism as in other places, which in my opinion is much more scary. Now, at the moment, the only people I could think of asking for help were my sisters. One of my sisters lives in the US, and the other one is in Canada, but in a different province. They both live far away, so there's nothing that they could have done to help me at that moment, but I feel like they are the only people I could trust. We have a WhatsApp group chat, so I sent them a message telling them what happened. I have lived in Canada for a couple of years, but it's not easy to make trustworthy friends here. Canada is a lonely place. I've met a lot of people, but I don't feel like any of them are my friends. If you're an immigrant in Canada, you probably understand what I mean. Anyway, back to the story. So my sisters were like, "You need to find a way to get out of there immediately." They tell me to make up an excuse, saying I had an emergency and needed to leave. I stayed in the room for some time, scared to death. It took everything in me not to start crying. After I had collected my thoughts and calmed down, I did what my sisters told me to do. I hadn't unpacked my bag yet, and luckily, we brought my car because it's fuel efficient compared to my boyfriend's. I took my bag and car keys and passed the living room in a rush, saying something came up and I had to leave. I didn't give them a chance to ask any questions. I just got in my car and drove away. It was getting late, and I wasn't in the right state of mind to drive back home. I just wanted to get as far away as possible before stopping at a hotel for the night. My boyfriend had called me a couple of times. I called him back, but I couldn't bring myself to tell him what happened, so I gave him the same excuse I gave his parents. He asked if he should come home as well, and I told him it wasn't necessary. I went home the next day, and my boyfriend showed up at my apartment a few hours later. I looked at him, and it felt like all the love that I had for him had just disappeared. Though I acted like everything was fine, I wondered if he was racist too. He had been so great during our whole relationship. I never once felt like he had any racist thoughts or feelings. But I can't help but think about how his family made me believe they were nice people, and I keep wondering if he's also pretending just to like me. We don't live together, but my lease is ending in July. He owns his place, so I was supposed to move in with him after my lease ended, but I have managed to get out of moving in with him. I don't feel like I love him anymore. It's been 3 days now since we got back from his parents' place, and I want to end things with him without it causing too much trouble, but I'm really scared. I want to tell him what happened, but I'm scared of finding out that he's racist as well. I don't know how he's going to react. Maybe I'm overthinking this, but there are so many stories of women getting murdered by their partners, and I'm scared that I could end up killed too. I guess I'm imagining the worst case scenario, and I'm judging him based on his parents' actions and not his. But I am genuinely scared. Even if he isn't racist, his family is. And if we stay together, no matter how much I try to avoid his family, there are still going to be situations where I'll have to interact with him, and I don't think I can ever move past what they said. Please help. In the comments, you should talk to him and tell him what his parents said and how it makes you feel. If he cares about you, he'll say or do something to let his family know that that language is not acceptable and that racism is not tolerable. However, you'll always think of what they said, and it may be hard to ignore now that you know what you know. Take some time to figure out if you still want to be in this relationship. OP replies, "I will talk to him, but I don't think the relationship will survive. He and his family seemed close, so I can't ask him to cut them out of his life, and I don't think I can move past what they said, so I don't see how the relationship can survive. OP, you should tell him. At least so he knows that if he dates a woman of color in the future, he better keep her away from his family. Yeah, it's not your job to educate him. I think it's good to end it by telling him the truth. Not the asshole. 5 months isn't all that long to be dating, so your hesitation about him makes sense. However, I think your anxiety may be getting the better of you. I think you should tell him. If he tries to justify or make excuses for what his family said, that's your answer. But it sounds like over 5 months, he has never given any hint of being racist, so maybe he's not like his family at all. The other side of it is that you're right. Even if he isn't racist but his family is, it will still be hard. Only you can decide whether your relationship with him would be worth that. Either way, not the asshole. OP replies, exactly. I felt like I had no idea who he was, because there could be 2 explanations. Either he actually has no idea his family is racist, or he knows they are racist and still brought me to their house, and then left me there all alone. But they raised him, so I don't think that he didn't know, which only leaves the second option. And now, onto the update. I couldn't keep up with all the comments, but 99.9% of them said to talk to him, and so I did. He didn't get all defensive or angry. He just listened to what I had to say, and we ended up having a great conversation about it. So, yesterday we went out on a coffee date. Things were a little bit awkward at first, so as soon as we sat down, I just straight up told him what happened. I expressed how much it bothered me that he left me all alone with his racist parents without a warning and how terrified I was. He profusely apologized and said he would talk to them about it and swore he had no idea that his parents felt this way about black people. I asked him how he didn't know, yet he grew up in their home. They raised him, so surely he must have heard some racist comments from them. He explained to me how during his childhood, all the people in his hometown were white. The neighbors were all white, the kids in his school were all white, and all his teachers were white. So race wasn't really a topic that ever came up in their home, or school, or anywhere that he went. Everyone was just white. He said his parents have always been very kind-hearted people, and those were the people that he thought he was bringing me home to. He didn't think that skin color was something that he had to worry about, and it didn't cross his mind that he was bringing a POC to a place that had only had white people. He was truly apologetic for that, and said that he should have known better. Anyway, we kept talking, and he told me about the first time he met a POC in real life. He was 19 years old, and he had just moved from his hometown to our city for college. He said he loved meeting people from different places with different cultures and different backgrounds, and hearing about all their experiences, which reminded me of when we first met. I thought he was really weird because he would ask me all these questions about my culture and home country. He honestly had so many questions, some of which I didn't even know the answers to. I googled the population of his hometown, and according to the 2022 census, 93% of the population is white. So back then, during his childhood, it was probably 100% white. So, I have chosen to believe him, because I guess he thought that his parents would have been as open-minded as he was. Some of you might not agree with this decision, but I've decided to give him a chance to prove himself before ending things with him. But I pointed out that if he plans to be with me, a black woman, he needs to understand that he cannot turn a blind eye to any discrimination I might face, including discrimination from his own family. I also told him that I didn't expect him to cut ties with his family, but it's going to take a while to salvage my relationship with them, and that I'm not yet ready to hear an apology from them. He agreed to this, and he promised to pay better attention and reassured me that he was on my side. I don't know if he has already spoken to his parents, but this morning I woke up to an apology DM from his sister, and the dots connected. In her message, she stated that she was shocked to hear her mother's words, and that she doesn't believe in that. She just agreed with her because it was her mother, and she didn't know what to do at the moment. His sister is attending college in our city, so I had met her a couple of times before, like maybe 3 or 4 times, so I'm thinking that she was the one who gave their parents the heads up. She and I weren't that close, but the few times we've met, I didn't feel any hint of racism. We were always civil with each other. Anyway, I still haven't responded to her messages, and I don't think I'm going to for now. I don't even know what to say to her. As for my boyfriend and I believe he and I had a meaningful conversation. I'm still not moving in with him, but I think we might be able to work things out. We might not pick up where we left off, but I know we can get back to where we were if we both put in the work. In the comments, Hopeful Cover 4836 says, I'm glad to see this update, and I hope that honest communication can salvage this if it's meant to be salvaged, or to let you get out of this if that's what is needed instead. Even if it can't be salvaged, I'm glad they're both acknowledging that the situation was not as they each perceived. I like that you said that he actually listened to you before speaking. This is a good sign for the future. If he truly is an honorable person, it will continue. They seem to have very good communication skills with each other. That bodes well for them. As long as they can keep talking, they have a better chance to keep going with their relationship. My parents did this too. White people only in our town. I married a brown boy. We don't talk to them anymore. This isn't that uncommon. From a southern Mississippi family, I knew my grandfather was racist, and I knew my dad had some questionable ideas growing up, but until Obama became president, I never realized how racist he, my stepmom, and mum are. It killed me inside because my dad was my hero. He never looked down on others who did a job, and he himself would jump in to help when he was their boss and didn't have to. He had taught me to lead by example rather than barking orders like his dad. I'm in my 40s now, and it's messed up our relationship. Well, add in all the MAGA stuff too. Hollow Shell says, am Canadian, can confirm. We can really suck sometimes. And yes, I'm fish belly white, so I've totally got the racist asshole family members going on too. I'm also Canadian and mixed race. We have what I call polite racism. People are rarely aggressive or even overtly rude, but they'll quietly follow you around a store because they believe your dark skin makes you more likely to steal. Our next post is by user TryComfortable4289, titled, Am I the asshole for not putting my partner's name on the house? So for context, we are both 27 male and have been together for around 8 years. I work a job that pays $60,000 a year, and he is unemployed and collects benefits off of his parents. He has been unemployed since COVID when he was fired and never got around to finding a job again. Recently, I've been looking into buying a house. He's been supportive of this and getting us out of the crazy renting market. I managed to find a house that I love and talk to him about it. We visited together, and we decided that this is the one. Now it gets to paperwork and mortgage stuff, and I complete it and pay the deposit. I tell him that it's all gone through, and we should be on track to moving in a couple of months. He asked to go through the paperwork, and I agree. 3 days later, he confronts me and asks why everything is in my name. I reply because it's my money, and I'm the one paying the mortgage. You're not putting any money or effort into the property. He retaliates, saying that I'm being financially abusive and says that I can't expect to own everything. Later on, we talk again and discuss our issues with it. I agreed that in my will, the house is left to him as well as most of my savings. He says it's not enough, and if we split up, he's left with nothing. It gets heated, and I tell him if he wanted a house, he should have worked for it, not stayed at home and relied on me. I said if he wanted to be on the mortgage, it'll mean that he'll have to find a job that pays the same as mine. The argument hasn't really resolved itself, and I'm wondering now whether I'm being inconsiderate of him. I really don't know what to do. I'm on your side for this one, OP. He hasn't done any work. Being with you does not constitute him being on the house if he has not done anything to earn it. That is not financial abuse. That's called being smart and not having your crap stolen from you from someone deciding to break up with you. It's so telling that you've gone through the entire process and have confirmed the purchase, and it's only now that he's asking to look at the financial documents. This guy has been paying no attention. This guy does not care. He didn't even try to have this discussion with you before the purchase, during the purchase. He just assumed that he would get claim. I hope that this is the big face slap of reality that this guy needs to wake up, but for some people it just isn't. But definitely in this situation, you're not the asshole. In the comments, Dunemi says, not the asshole. Your partner is not a partner. He's a dependent. He has no right to any of your property. In fact, he should be paying you rent if he wants to live in the house. You are responsible for the mortgage, not him. You are responsible for insurance and repairs and all the things that go with home ownership. He is not. He doesn't get to mooch off of your assets beyond the regular mooching that he's already accomplished. I would kick him to the curb and get on with your life. But that's me. Am I the only one who's concerned about the will? Serious question, maybe overreacting. Did I read right that OP's partner insisted on being left the house and savings during this argument? By benefits from his parents, does that just mean that his parents are subsidizing his lifestyle and now accusing his partner of financial abuse? I'm sorry, but this all sounds very bad to me. I would also kick him to the curb. So many aspects to this situation are creeping me out. Not the asshole. You were both very young when you got together. You're in very different places now. Maybe it would be good for the both of you to take some time apart. Like, where is his stake? If you break up and he's left with nothing, how is that your fault? If you haven't prevented him from earning, saving, or spending money, then it's not financial abuse. Not the asshole, and I would not let him move in without a written lease agreement, even if no money changes hands. Clearly, things need to be well defined between you. If you break up, he'd be left with what he put into the house. Nothing. And that's fair. That might depend on the area they live in and their family law act. In some locations, cohabiting for a certain amount of time gives entitlement to property rights. So he's not mentally or physically unable to work, he's not going to school, he's not home raising children or caring for an elderly parent, he just chooses not to work because he doesn't want to work, and this isn't anything the two of you agreed on. He just forced it on you by not finding a job? Yeah, someone's committing some financial abuse here, but it's not you. Seriously, everyone's saying no assholes here or you're the asshole and being like, this should have been discussed beforehand. Like, he discussed that? Pfft. Opie, do whatever you need to keep him off your purchase. Only discuss putting his name on things if he starts contributing anything. And now, onto the update. Thank you everyone for the feedback. We had a difficult conversation last night where I proposed that if he pays rent towards the mortgage, then I will put his name on the deed. Unfortunately, this had a lot of backlash, and he made the claim of me being financially abusive again. I have now said that he cannot move in with me to the new house if he does not contribute to it. He said he feels betrayed and belittled. I feel like I'm in the same situation that I was at the start. And unfortunately, that is all the information that OP has given us for this post. I mean, there are a lot of highly upvoted and very highly downvoted comments that OP gave 5 days ago. Things like, he does housework and stuff like that, he isn't lazy, he just doesn't like to work. I don't think he would leave me. We've been together for too long. I just think he has a lot of anxiety of having no backup if I were to leave him, except for his parents. We've been discussing him working, but he doesn't like the field he trained in and doesn't want to retrain because he hated school. So at this point, this is our best option work-wise. Which, like, man, so what? People hate their jobs, but they still have bills to pay. That doesn't mean they don't work. Also, added context, I don't think it really matters though, but this is a man with another man. My commentary there is the partner is not gay, he's homosexual. Just kidding, that's a funny little joke. Ultimately, I guess if I were to extrapolate on this situation, I would want them to break up so that the partner can have some time to mature and find their own way in life and not mooch off of OP. Ultimately, if there is a future update on this, I will be sure to cover it. With that said, I'd love to know what you guys think of this down in the comments below. Am I the asshole for not letting my sister walk down the aisle at my wedding? I, 29 female, am getting married to the love of my life, 30 male, in a few months. We were high school lovers and childhood friends. He is truly my best friend and everything that I want in life. However, we both decided to wait until we were well off to be married, so that we could have our once-in-a-lifetime magical moment. My sister Stacy, 21 female, got married at 19 to someone who I like, but I'm not super close with. They were together for 5 months before he proposed. Their wedding was rushed, and half our family couldn't even make it because of how soon it was planned and set up. It was small and just in a courtroom. No dress, party, etc., just a legal wedding. However, my wedding is around 19k and we haven't even finished everything. It took us ages to set up everything and to save. Stacy recently came up to me while coming over. We were close and have dinner once a week at my place and asked if she could walk down my aisle and meet her husband so she could feel like a bride. I laughed and asked if she was serious, and she was. She claims that she never got her magic moment and just wants to feel special once. But it's my wedding and my special day. She had hers. Stacy claims that it will only be between us and it won't take away from me, but then I asked what she might wear, and she showed me pictures on her phone of wedding dresses. Hard no from me. She then asked again yesterday in front of my fiancé, and I think it was an attempt to pressure me. He laughed and said no, thinking it was a joke, like I did the first time. My mother and Stacy's husband say I'm being an asshole because Stacy still isn't rich, so she can't afford another wedding even if she wanted one, but neither are me and my future husband. We just planned for years. I just wanted one day for myself, but maybe I'm blowing it up because she never got the bridal experience. I won't lie, OP, I thought it was a joke too. Even more of an extended joke with the fact that she brought out wedding dresses. How delusional is she? She's crazy! When has a wedding ever been acceptable where a guest wears a wedding dress and gets to walk down the aisle? How many pills is she taking? Why would you think that you're an asshole in this situation? What have you done to make yourself an asshole besides reject this stupid question? Anyway, in the comments, POT3 says, "Not the asshole. There is no conceivable universe where her walking down the aisle on your wedding day, at the location of your wedding, wearing a wedding dress, will be just between the two of you, and not detract from your day. It's rude of her to even ask." Edit to add, if she wants a special moment, she is free to plan her own vow renewal event where she wears a wedding dress and has all of her family, etc. OP replies, "If she was just going to wear a nice dress and walk before me and stand beside me and her husband, I would probably have no problem with it, or at least let her do it, but I feel like she's just trying to use my wedding as a free event for her." That would be nice of you, but given how much work planning and orchestrating a wedding is, and how much money, it should really be about you. OP replies, "That's what my fiancé keeps reminding me of. But I just feel guilty since I've always been able to afford more than my sister. Job at 16, saving money, etc. Meanwhile, she only worked after college, which was fully paid for by our parents, while I had to get by on scholarships. So I guess I just want to help her out since she really couldn't afford a big wedding." Stop right there. Your parents paid for her college and you had to figure out college yourself? Sorry, OP, your parents have a clear favorite and it's not you. Doesn't sound like you've had a lot be about you in your life, and your wedding is the one day that it should absolutely be all about you. Don't feel guilty. None of this is your responsibility. She is free to have her own separate wedding if she wants a redo. It should not be at your expense. OP replies, "When I was in college, my parents weren't well off. But when my sister was, my grandmother had passed and left a large sum of money to my parents and sister. My grandpa's the only one who helped pay for my college when I desperately needed food or books." So your sister has always had more just given to her without working for it? You had to work for everything that you have, and now she's demanding what's yours too. Not the asshole. If you said yes, you'd just be making her more entitled, and she sounds plenty entitled. I can't believe her mother wants you to share your wedding, which you paid for, when your sister already got an education for free when you paid for yours. She's making it clear that she values her more. Your parents had a choice about how to distribute that money. Half could have gone to you and half to your sister, then you could both decide how to use that money yourselves. Instead, it all went to your sister. I think you're trying to avoid thinking too hard about this because it means that your parents favor your sister. OP replies, "Our mother definitely favors my sister, since she was born after a miscarriage and our father died recently of cancer, which is one reason that my sister had a quick wedding so he could be there. And I think that she's scared something might happen to my sister." Not the asshole. I see stuff like this on the sub, and I'm shocked that people have the audacity to even ask stuff like this. It doesn't matter if she's your sister and her moment wasn't what she had hoped for. If you allow this, then your moment will be different than you imagined it to be too. Your sister and her husband made their choices. They could have waited, but they didn't. OP replies, I asked her when she accepted his proposal if she was sure that it was a good idea, since it seemed really rushed. But her response was that since my boyfriend proposed a few weeks earlier, she wanted to get hers over with it and tie the knot so that I would be able to have my wedding in the fall, like I always dreamed, and hers wouldn't overlap. Your sister wanted to get married before you, knowing you were having a long engagement. There was never going to be an overlap, and she knew it. She wanted to show off then, and now wants to make your day about her. She is also manipulating you to feel sorry, as she rushed and cannot afford the wedding that you are having. Do not give her an inch. She can be a guest, and you must approve her speech prior to giving it, or deny her speech if she continues throwing a fit. She is not your responsibility to fix her poor choices from the past. She is a grown adult now. And now, onto the update. Hello everyone. I just wanted to post an update on the situation with my sister Stacy. So the day after I made the post, me, my fiancée, Stacy, and her husband met up for brunch. I told her that she needed to hear me out fully before she spoke, and thankfully she did. In short, I told her as much as I love her, I've waited years for this day, and it was mine. She had hers, and if she truly wanted, she could have used the money that I gifted her to get her own wedding. Her husband cut me off and said they needed the money for rent, but she didn't let him talk. I showed her the Reddit post, and she started crying and asked her husband and my fiancé to step out for a few minutes. They both did, and she told me that her husband and our mum had been the ones pressuring her, since she had admittedly been jealous, and told them both that she wished she could have had a large-scale wedding. She said she had been over the whole thing until her husband started saying that it wasn't fair because he was jealous he couldn't provide for her, and he eventually complained enough that she asked to walk down the aisle for him. Stacy said that she was willing to fully back out of the wedding and would understand given the heartache that she's given me. But I told her that her husband would be the one without an invite, which she gratefully agreed to. We talked more in depth on why she was jealous, and she said she regretted getting married so early just so that our father could be at her wedding. After a few more minutes and both of us crying and forgiving one another, I told her that she could always tell me anything, even if it was between her and her husband. When my fiancé and her husband came back in, I told Stacy's husband that he was uninvited right then and there, and he seemed to understand why immediately, though he did groan about it and called me multiple times, but I blocked him again. Over the past few days, our mother is called to apologize, and me and Stacy have been talking much more openly and honestly to one another. I decided to let her wear a dark silver or pale gold dress to match my theme and walk with me down the aisle, as my father sadly can't. She told me that I didn't need to, but I insisted. We ended up finding a dress that we both love, and I got it as a gift for her. Thank you for all the support and kind words. In the comments, Ivan Nimoy says, "This is such a touching update. I hope that all goes well for you, your soon-to-be husband, and your sister." OP replies, "Thank you. I hope so too. Sounds like you made the best of this situation. Having her walk you down the aisle was a great move, and I'm sorry for the loss of your father." OP says, "Thank you. I'll always miss him, but he won't ever be apart from me. Your brother-in-law is a piece of work. He feels jealous because he can't provide for her, but he's comfortable forcing others to provide? And not even necessities, but luxuries. What an entitled asshole. OP, stay close to your sister. She has already given you signs that she's not happy in her marriage and may need your support to get out of it." OP replies, "Yes, I'll be keeping him close enough to keep an eye on him, but not too close. He's not a horrible guy, he's just very bad with money and is hot-tempered. I hoped that with age he would mellow out, but I'm not sure. Bad with money and hot-tempered sounds pretty horrible." Stacy is still young and can still plan a wedding. Hers seemed more like a marriage officiation. Renew vows at 10 years, have the wedding that she would have wanted if she had the money. Start saving now? I have a feeling that Stacy won't make it to the 10-year mark. Well, then she can have a lovely second wedding with someone nicer than her future ex-husband. Honestly, that kind of seems to be the writing on the wall in this situation. The advice I would give to OP is to go low contact with this brother-in-law and potentially your mother for quite a while until you figure out what the hell is going on with those two. When I read that comment about the father dying and that being the reason for the early marriage, I was like, oof, that one hits me in the chest, god damn. I can completely understand why she had that wedding, and that's just an unfortunate circumstance in life. Cancer doesn't discriminate. Just another one of these rock in a hard place situations where it doesn't feel like there is a good answer. But still, that's no excuse for the mother and the brother-in-law's actions, regardless of the entitled attitude of the sister and how much she benefited from the death of a grandparent previous to that. Anyway, guys, I'd love to know what you think of this one down in the comments below. Let me know. Okay, trigger warning for the next story from everyone that's like, Marky, I'm eating at work right now. Why'd you read a gross story? There are mentions of feces in this story. If you don't like the mention of feces, run for the hills. Our next post is by user DogPoopThrowaway9, titled, "My boyfriend of 4 years has been collecting and freezing our dog's poo." So my boyfriend and I have been together for 4 years. We have lived together for 2. A few months ago, we adopted a dog who was about 1 year old. He is very healthy and loving, well-trained, and is a perfect dog. My boyfriend has a so-called man cave in our house. It's untidy, so I don't really go in there. He has a fridge and a freezer there, which I assumed was for drinks and snacks. Today, I had some friends over, and we ran out of beer, so I went to his man cave to see if he had any in his freezer. It turns out he didn't, but he did have a whole F-load of my dog's poo in there. Frozen. It looks like he'd been collecting it for a month. There's like 60 bags of poo. What the hell? How do I confront him about this and ask what's going on? Why would he be freezing my dog's poo? My dog has nothing wrong with him, so there's no reason that his poo needs to be preserved. No one has told us to do this. What the hell? If you're one of those people that ate through this story, I tip my hat to you. And if you're gonna write an angry comment being like, oh my god, I didn't think it was that bad, maybe you're the asshole because you chose to stick around. Also, what the hell is going on with the dog poo in the freezer? Is this some like elaborate Mr. Beast video going on? I tricked 1,000 people into eating dog poo. The last one to die from food poisoning gets $500,000. On to the comments. Evil Pickle Rick says, maybe he has someone that he wants to get back at. If you smash them and freeze them as a disc, you can slide them in someone's cracked window, so then when they come back, they've got a poo puddle in their car. Is this something you've done, mate? It has to be. That was too specific. Quote, how do I confront him about this and ask what's going on? Why the hell is your freezer full of our dog's poo? I'm not sure why you needed advice on how to ask this. And OP replies, he's been under a lot of stress recently, so I wanted to make sure there wasn't some obvious explanation before I go in asking him what the hell is happening. And he isn't home for a few hours, and I was curious as hell. But alas, there is no explanation other than a prank. I'll update when he's home and we talk. Frickin' weird. Update. So my boyfriend came home and I pretty much asked him what the hell he was doing with frozen poo. After an initial non-reaction, he put his head in his hands and started to laugh. He explained that his friend from uni is moving to town. His friend and him had an ongoing tradition of gross as hell pranks. They've been in touch recently, just catching up before the move, and his friend sent a box of bird crap to my boyfriend disguised as a box of chocolates. I didn't know about this. Anyway, my boyfriend wanted to get him back by sending him a welcome to town gift from my friend's new boss of steaks, which he would drop off at his house prior to him arriving. By the time his friend arrived, the steak box would have defrosted, friend would open the box from his boss, and he would open it just to find our dog's poop. Like, I'm glad he's not eating it, I guess. The prank is weird, and he didn't tell me because he knew that I'd think it was gross and didn't think I'd want to be involved. Which I don't really, but I am so relieved. I just told him to send 30 bags instead of his confirmed 65, and now I can get rid of the rest. I've also told him to keep me updated on future pranks so I don't end up thinking that he's secretly snacking on our pup's butt nuggets. In the comments, 'Cause I Can says, I think this is one of those pranks where the payoff isn't worth the effort. That will always be the poop fridge. I personally would never want anything that had been in that freezer. I don't care if it's in bags, I believe in cooties, and that freezer has dog poop cooties now. Even if he deep cleans it, the vibes are off and it's haunted by dog poop now. I'm sorry, I don't make the rules. Yup, it is haunted by poop. It will never be decontaminated from the shit spirits. There is no exorcism powerful enough, not even done by the Trailer Park Boys themselves. Let this be a word of warning to anyone considering buying a second-hand fridge. You have no way to be sure that it wasn't used to store a month's worth of dog shit. Honestly, wise words. So wise. Do not buy second-hand fridges. You don't know if they're saving up to do a 1000 dog poop Mr. Beast video. What about you guys? Have you done pranks like this? I want to know down in the comments below. Daughter avoids me at all costs after an embarrassing encounter. How can I gain her back? I'm a 38-year-old single dad, and I'm the primary caregiver for my daughter who is 15 years old. Her mother is out of the picture and has been for a long time. I have been single-handedly taking care of my daughter since she was 3 years old. Last weekend, I caught her in a very inconvenient, very embarrassing moment. I arrived home early without informing her. She was in the living room, right across the TV, on my couch, butt naked, watching porn. I screamed with horror first, and then she followed. I ran out of the living room apologizing. She ran into her room and locked the door, and since that day, I haven't seen my daughter. Now, I'm not a strict dad. For the context, we live in a conservative Muslim country, but Islam doesn't play a role in my family or in many of her acquaintances' families. I'm open as much as I can be regarding sex, puberty, mental health, etc., but of course no one is immune from the society they live in. The taboo of sex, sexuality, and sexual desires still looms in people's minds, even if you don't believe such taboos. She doesn't talk to me. She deliberately avoids me. I try to communicate through her door, and at best I get, "I'm fine, leave me alone," as an answer. She changed her schedule so we don't bump into each other. She doesn't answer my calls. I might get 1 or 2 word text messages if I'm lucky. I don't know how to deal with this situation. I don't care what she does in her private time. I just miss my daughter. I want to spend time together again. She can be very stubborn, and I know that if I don't intervene somehow, this hide-and-seek game will last much longer. I'm open to all advice. Thank you for your interest. In the comments, Vulcan Feminist says, when I was a teenager, a similar thing happened. My dad came home early unexpectedly and found me and my boyfriend naked and having sex in the middle of the living room. It was horrible for the both of us, but honestly, what was most horrible for me was actually that my dad never mentioned it and wouldn't look at me or be in the same room as me for weeks afterwards. He avoided me like she's avoiding you. Obviously, you're at least trying, which is fantastic. I think what I would want in your daughter's position, or at least what I might have wanted from my own father way back when, is an open line of communication and reassurance. A text message seems best since she is clearly avoiding you. Maybe something like, "Hey, I know that was awful for you, and I'm sure you're feeling a lot of feelings about it. I want you to know that I'm here if you want to talk. This doesn't change anything between us. I still love you and support you just like before, and that's a completely normal thing. You have nothing to be ashamed of or to feel bad about. It's really okay." And then just follow her lead. If she doesn't respond back, go ahead and just let it go. This too shall pass. I'd also recommend inviting her out to something you can do together that would feel normal, like a movie, dinner, whatever kinds of things you two normally do together. Something where you can have a positive social interaction to help show her that the relationship really is unchanged and you can both move forward from this. OP replies, "Thank you for the perspective. I imagine getting caught with someone is much worse than caught while being alone. To be honest, I skimmed some details that make the situation much more embarrassing, like she didn't even have time to turn off the TV, so I had to do it myself. If she doesn't talk to me tonight, I will text her or write a letter as per your suggestion. She has a tendency to punish herself if things don't work out like she imagined, and I don't want her to feel guilty for such a stupid thing. Aloof Bidoof says, Hi. Oh dear, that was a mortifying situation for the both of you, but inevitably much worse for your daughter. The teenage years are tough and confusing, as you no doubt know. The best thing you can do in this situation is firstly, never mention it to her, and also give her time to come to you. She's not avoiding you because she's stubborn, she's avoiding you because the most embarrassing thing in the world happened, and she needs time to get over it. I really hope your relationship returns to normal soon. You seem like a great and caring dad. I don't know, I feel like finding your parents on the couch would be more embarrassing. OP replies, She will not come to me. I know my daughter. I need to comfort her, make sure she understands that everything is okay. This is what I mean by being stubborn. Since I cannot talk to her directly, I'll write something and wait until she responds. Thank you for your good wishes. Kelly Asks Things says, Dude, I'm from a liberal country, and if this happened to me as a teenager, I would have died. Imagine how you would have reacted in her shoes. You sound like an amazing dad. If I was you, I'd send her a text message just saying that you miss her like crazy, so please come back and act like nothing ever happened, then let her sit with that and come back when she's ready. Update. I was hesitant to make an update, but I thought there might be other parents, especially single parents, who might experience a similar situation. As I expected, the situation never improved. Hide and seek continued. I wrote a letter to my daughter, as suggested in the initial post. I basically wrote that she did nothing wrong, she shouldn't be ashamed of me, and how much I missed her. I was planning to put the letter in her doorway or slide under it when she wasn't at home, but then I changed my plan. 2 days ago, during the night, I knocked on her door again and demanded to speak to her. Obviously, she tried to make me go away, but I was determined this time. I forced her to unlock her door and demanded an explanation as to why she was still avoiding me. She immediately burst into tears, and I felt awful inside. Never in my life was I this assertive to my child. I hugged her and said that it's okay. I'm not angry. You did nothing wrong. At this point, my shirt was wet with her tears and mucus. I told her that we can talk about it when she feels better in the morning, or never mention it again for the rest of our lives if she is willing to go back to our normal father-daughter relationship. The next morning, the subject never came up, but she let me braid her hair, so we're good now. I'm getting her a smaller TV, sending my couch to deep cleaning, and no more unannounced house arrivals. I will probably make fun of her 10 years later or something as payment for my suffering. Thank you for your attention and advice. I hope you found my misery useful. In the comments, Ty Moore 2 says, What a miserable experience for the both of you. However, I think your relationship will come away stronger. I'm glad it's over. I was tasked with sex education by my youngest daughter. I always base what I explain in what I would have wanted to know at that age, and of course, answers to her questions. And any dopamine-producing activity can induce some addiction, so I always advise moderation and discretion. And of course, these conversations can be slightly awkward, so it's a sense of relief to move on to different topics. Subject covered? Yep, okay, let's move to a less awkward subject. Seen any good movies? Like I tell my siblings, hopefully the kids mess up less than we did. Wait, did you actually discuss dopamine with her? Drugs, work, studies, friends, mental health, dopamine, bosses, food, health, books. A lot depends on what she wants to discuss. I travel for work, so I needed her informed to make her own decisions. The more they care about themselves, the more I try to help. I took care of my youngest sibling, and it was key to get them interested in achieving goals. Life is tough. It's easier to help those that are willing to put in the work and want the help. You are a fantastic parent. First rule of sexual exploits while in the family home, never, ever in the shared living areas. This goes for everyone, including parents. And second rule, lock the door. For real, my sister and her husband lived with my parents for a while, and at least once while they were doing the do, my dad knocked on their door, and they went for the knob without waiting. They went for the knob! without waiting for a response. Just knock knock, click. Thankfully, they had their door locked. Some things you never want your parents to see. She just had so much faith that no one would be coming home, lol. Completely naked in the living room, blasting porn on the big screen? My anxiety could never. I live alone and I still feel this way. Anxiety. Yeah, even living alone, it's just like, ugh. How can you do something like that? There are people, generally, in the vicinity. I get exhibitionism, especially within the confines of your own place, but dear Lord, some people just have too much confidence. Anyway, guys, what did you think of this one? Do you guys ever do the exact same as this daughter and have no shame? I'd love to know, especially if it's on your couch. Our next post is by user Get This Ass, titled, Am I the asshole for chewing out my 35 female, sister 37 female, for pressuring my daughter 13 female to babysit for free? When I was a teenager, my parents would have me and my siblings go along with them to events and functions with their friends and would often host family-friendly get-togethers at our place. This seemed great because it allowed me and my siblings to socialize with people our age outside of school. However, at some point when I was 12 or 13, I would notice that a lot of these parents would come and just abandon their kids. We lived on a big property, and we had goats, horses, chickens, ponds, etc., and I would notice that young kids were playing around these dangerous things without any supervision. Because of this, I felt like I had to keep an eye on them. And I'm not sure how it happened, but soon it became the norm for the same families to dump their kids on me whenever they were with my parents at one of these social functions. I spent a massive chunk of my teen years going to socials where I just became a free nanny to sometimes 5 kids at once for hours on end. I remember feeling like I couldn't say no because they were adults. I also remember feeling like the biggest loser ever. I remember seeing my older sister chatting with her friends and all sorts of cute boys, while I was cast to the side, sweaty, stressed out, and making sure these kids don't stick their fingers in electrical sockets or something. I confided in my older sister about how this was stressing me out, and how I felt like I wasn't making friends because of this. But when I asked her to help me, she would just tell me that she didn't feel like it. This brings us to the 4th of July. My parents wanted a big party in their yard, and my sister has a 5-year-old. I saw her approach my daughter about 30 minutes into the party, and soon my daughter leaves her group of friends and sits with her baby cousin. More than an hour later, I find her still with her cousin, and my sister is nowhere to be found. I ask her what she's doing, and she replies that her aunt asked her to watch the niece for a bit. I wanted to talk with my sister about this and found her standing in the air-conditioned living room with a drink in her hand, laughing and talking with friends. I pulled her aside and asked why she would make my daughter babysit for free and that it was unfair to shirk responsibility onto the kid when she should be enjoying time with her friends. She responded that she wanted a break because it's hard being a single mother and she just wants to have fun today. I told her that if she couldn't handle being a single mom, then she should have kept her legs shut. I know, that's bad. Things escalated and my husband and I left early. Family members have been texting me and saying that I am an asshole. However, I feel strongly about this and believe that my daughter was being taken advantage of. My husband thinks that I should have let it happen and let our daughter figure out that for herself. So Reddit, am I the asshole? The only thing that potentially makes you an asshole is that comment, but that was to your sister and I'm sure it's not that deep. And obviously I make that assumption because it seems like you and your sister are amicable and not like at each other's necks. Whether you like it or not, and obviously you didn't like it, you were like semi-parentified by all those adults growing up, and they just kept adding to the pile of free babysitting with you, which ostracized you from friends and, socializing and having fun and being a kid. It turned you into a mini adult that wasn't being paid for their services. I know exactly how you feel in this situation, and it hurts. You feel like you're dying inside constantly, and you don't have an out. No one's there to support you and see what you're going through. Your sister should know better for what she's trying to put your daughter through, knowing what you went through, but it's obvious she doesn't care, and she won't care unless, you yell at her and you get it through her thick skull, not the asshole. In the comments, VariousTry4624 says, not the asshole. Good for you for standing up for your daughter. Female teenage relatives should not be the automatic go-to for free or compulsory babysitting, but they are forced into that role all too often. You definitely get a Great Mum award. I would have taken the nibbling by the hand, told the daughter to go enjoy herself, walked the kid back to her mother, and told her my daughter was done helping her for the day. Matter-of-factly, without recriminations or anger. Your language was uncalled for, so everyone sucks here, but she's worse than you. Yes, OP was absolutely in the right up until she made that comment. Had she just been an adult about it and done what you suggested, then everything would have been fine. Sister may have then just asked her mum or someone else to help for a bit. Instead, OP said something extremely cruel and essentially slut-shamed her sister. That one comment could seriously damage her relationship with her sister and also makes her look like a massively insensitive asshole to the rest of the family and anyone else who heard her say it. Stinstin555 says, I am a firm believer in not your kid, not your responsibility. OP, not the asshole. Asking kids to watch kids for free is exploitative. I personally would have said, okay, mum, since family helps family, you can take care of the kids at the next gathering. Alternatively, OP, create a family group chat before the next gathering and let everyone know that due to such a high demand for babysitting, your daughter has launched a babysitting service and charging $15 per hour payable up front. On a serious note, kids should be kids for as long as they can. Adulting is hard. They need to live as carefree as possible and enjoy their childhood before it is gone. Mood International 481 says, not the asshole. Do you know what situations you leave children to figure out themselves? Situations among their peers, not an adult family member making a request of them because they have most likely been taught to listen to that adult. This is a time and age where now they need to be taught when and where to say no. This is a teaching moment, not a throw them to the wolves moment. What is your husband thinking? I would sit your daughter down and talk with her about what she's willing and not willing to do in situations like this. For instance, is she willing to do it for compensation? And at what rate? She can set these terms. Is she willing to watch her cousin for 30 minutes to help out? Set a timer, and if your sister pulls a disappearing act, what happens? Update. Recently had a phone call with my mum since the incident. I told her that I hated the fact that my sister went behind my back to get my daughter to watch her kid for an undisclosed amount of time. A bit does not mean more than an hour, and I felt like it was exploitative, especially since she went behind my back. My mum said, "It's totally normal to ask family to do that. You used to do that all the time, remember?" I have no words, Lamau. I guess that just about wraps it all up. There doesn't appear to be another update from there. That is the conclusion to this situation. Obviously, if there is another update, I'll cover it in the future, but unfortunately, this is just a trash family. The mum is backing up the daughter, who is taking advantage of this child. Life is unfair. I am very much jealous of my husband's ex-wife. So I, 40 female, am very much jealous of my husband's, 50 male, ex. Our relationship started with an affair. I know it was wrong. Their marriage was on the rocks, and my husband wanted to end it. When she, 48 female, learned about the affair, she didn't scream or shout at me. She was rather calm. She only asked me if I truly loved her husband. I said yes. She told me that if I'm going to be a part of my husband's life, I better treat her kids, 19 female, 16 male, and 14 female, with respect and not push them to accept me. She didn't even create any hassle in the divorce. Things were tough. My husband's parents and friends really criticized us, and his parents almost disowned him. If it wasn't for his ex, they would have went with it. But his ex convinced them not to cut us off. Their parents did forgive my husband, but I still feel like an outsider to them. But they do love our kid, 4 male. My husband's ex is very different. She never held a grudge against me, always pushed her kids to have a relationship with her dad. His oldest doesn't talk to him because of the divorce, and it always hurts my husband that his daughter wants nothing to do with them. The rest of them are good. They do not love me, but they are very civil. She never badmouthed me or called me a homewrecker. She did her best for the kids. She still tries her best so that her oldest daughter has a good relationship with her dad. I used to think that she's a silly woman for not holding a grudge. She was always nice to me. When I was pregnant, she first congratulated me, and even though she wasn't invited to my baby shower, she sent me a diaper genie as a gift. I always felt guilty that I hurt such a pious woman. To make it more complicated, she's in a relationship with my cousin, 45 male. My parents love her, uncle and aunt love her, even my cousin's kids love her. She never discriminated between her kids and mine. She always sends some cookies or extra food for my son with her kids whenever it's their visitation time. She even met my son and treats him like her own. For the longest time, I wondered why she's like this. Is she trying to win her husband back? I even asked her why she doesn't hate me when I was her husband's mistress. She told me she doesn't see the point because whether or not she hates me, her marriage was over anyways. I am jealous of her. She is not just beautiful, but also graceful. I know I was very much younger than her when my husband started the affair, but I can say that she is much more better looking than I am, even if I took her place in her husband's life, but I can never be her. In the comments, Prettier Genghis says, not only she got rid of the cheater, but got a new boyfriend and is revered by everyone. Good for her. You know that saying, kill you with kindness. Lol. Ex-wife has done nothing but be nice to this lady, and it's killing her. Best revenge ever. Ex-wife is a lady that I aspire to be like if I was in that situation. Maybe part of you thinks that if he can cheat and leave a beautiful, graceful, forgiving woman with whom he had built a life with, he will eventually leave his mistress, and it won't be as easy for you to pick up the pieces. You reap what you sow. I also have a lot of regrets. Yes, and no one's going to support you, OP. You do realize that, right? If he really leaves you for someone younger, his children from the first marriage may choose to love the new wife. The only person who will choose any kindness towards you will be the ex. Let's be honest, if he can cheat on her, such an amazing woman, why won't he cheat on you? It is always easier the second time around, and everyone already sees you as the evil homewrecker. No one's going to give him trouble for cheating on you, except the ex, maybe. Itsy Bitsy Crispy says, dang, she's almost killed you with kindness. And she's not even trying. She just sounds very kind. I too strive to be nice and liked, just for the good of it. I'm not sure about much, but it seems like you just keep saying how kind she is. Lilu123 says, perhaps you were hoping that she would treat you terribly so that you could justify your actions in being the other woman and contributing to all the pain and hurt that your husband caused. It'd be easy to feel justified in a decision to be the affair partner if you can demonize the other woman. Seems like she's moved on and can be happy without any hate in her heart. Good luck to you. Exactly. No one can pull the crazy ex-wife scenario, so OP and her husband both don't look great compared to her. I hope that OP moves past it for her own sake. Back up to the post, we have an edit. I knew very well I wasn't going to be treated like a good person here. I know I'm not a good person either for breaking up a home. So, I am editing this to clear a few things out. I know I made typos, I wrote this in a hurry. I didn't even have time to reverse what I wrote. I am not in a good position right now, and yes, it is because of my husband too. But that's a story that I'll share later. I fixed the typos, so I hope it's clear to you all. Yes, I like her a lot. She is an amazing human. I'm glad that I don't have any ex-wife drama in my life. And yes, a part of that really makes me insecure because I keep trying to find a fault in her, because even my own parents like her when she attended the family functions as my cousin's girlfriend. My cousin and her met each other a year ago when he was visiting me, and she came to drop off my kid along with hers. She sometimes invites my son to her house, and that's why she herself dropped him off. I asked her to stay for dinner, and there my cousin and her hit it off and decided to date. That's pretty much it. Also, no, this was not written by her. She doesn't use social media that much as far as I know. And now, onto the update, titled, My husband is still in love with his ex-wife. I feel so alone. I made a post a few days ago. There I vented my frustrations about how my husband's ex was so good. Yes, a part of me was jealous of her. She was so nice and kind. Her kids are really well behaved. I know they will never accept me as part of the family, but they haven't even been mean to me or my son in any ways. Till now, I thought the problem was my husband's ex. But no, the problem was him. I do not know how it came to this. I agreed when we started dating that he was married. He told me his marriage was already over and he would be getting a divorce soon. Their marriage had problems, that is all I knew. The problem started almost a few months ago. I could see him being distant towards me. I know couples go through stages in life where they have been distant towards each other. I tried to give him the space he needs. Before getting married, we went to premarital counseling because my husband was really adamant to not screw up. For those months, there was no intimacy. I didn't think he would cheat because he wasn't late or hid anything on his phone. Then when we finally became intimate and made love, he said his ex-wife's name. That is when I froze. Why? The next day I confronted him and he didn't lie to me. He broke down in tears and said that he was still in love with his ex. My heart broke. I guess I know now how she must have felt when I was the other woman. I asked him if he really loved her. Why did he marry me? I got the full picture after 6 effing years. Yes, they had problems, but according to my husband, it was his fault. He never confessed his affair. His ex-wife found out about the affair on her own and confronted him. He was ready to make the marriage work, but before that, his wife served him divorce papers. The last thing she said to him was that she's giving him the freedom that he wants. My husband said that he begged and pleaded. His ex was smart. She only kept the house and 50-50 for the kids. She even explained the kids the reason for their divorce. His oldest daughter knew the actual reason, but the other two were given a kid-friendly reason. On top of his divorce and his oldest daughter not talking to him, that really put a toll on his mind. I was there for him. He thought that he should move on with his life with me instead, but deep down he always loved her. He always feels guilty for hurting her. I understand all of that, but I don't understand why now. He said he wants to start a new life with me. I apologize to everyone. I do not hate his ex. It is him that I am mad at. He is a weak man. I am not a better woman. He will always have a place in his heart for her because they've been together since teenagers. I notice the signs now. Whenever he would see his ex with her new boyfriend, he would get upset. He tried to hide it, but I know why. I am living in the guest room until we sort things out. I guess y'all are happy because I'm getting what I deserve. In the comments, Girl with Dragon Tattoo says, I don't think you've learned a lesson because no one wants you to be miserable. They wanted you to be accountable, which you still are not. You wanted to feel superior, to feel chosen, to feel like you were the first and best pick, but you entered into a situation where that could literally never be true, because if that was the case, he would have left his ex before attempting a relationship with you. The cruelty was the point. You enjoyed making and imagining her feel less than and foolish. You reveled in that and thought less of her. Now you're standing in the mirror and instead of seeing her, you see yourself. I said on your last post that the reason she's able to find happiness is because she has self-respect. I still stand by that. Sure, he's a person with no self-respect who begged for a relationship he intentionally sabotaged, but you have basked in the turmoil of him demolishing their life. You didn't care. You had no empathy, yet you're expecting so much. He lied to his ex and had an affair, whether he later admitted or not, so why did you think that he could never lie to you too? That's something that I simply don't understand about people who enter into relationships as affair partners. You agreed with his values until they negatively affected you. So again, this is less about him being weak and more about you. You need to take accountability for yourself and stop placing blame on the ex or even on your husband, no matter how pathetic he is. The circumstances of your current life are based around your decision-making. This is a stupid name Zero says, hook up with a married man and be surprised when it doesn't work out? Shake my head. You know he would cheat on you with her in a second if he had the chance. If they'll cheat with you, they'll cheat on you. That is a fact. At least he was actually honest with you now and you can make whatever decision you want. A lifetime of knowing your partner would rather be with someone else does not sound like fun to me though. I guess y'all are happy because I'm getting what I deserve. I still think people who usually say this are just being passive-aggressive. They are. They think being glad someone's getting what they deserve shows some kind of moral failure. They really just want people to reassure them that they're not that bad and everyone deserves forgiveness. I feel everyone deserves forgiveness if they take full responsibility. Anyone asking for forgiveness is immediately incongruous with this, in my opinion. To truly repent means accepting the scorn of your actions in perpetuity and still doing what you can to rectify your mistakes with no expectations for if it'll change someone's mind. Forgiveness is for victims to heal, not to make shitty people feel better for doing shitty things. OP thought that she had won a prize. Turns out that it was a Cracker Jack toy. It reminds me of that Tyler Perry movie where the female protagonist has an affair with her boss and has a kid with her. When their affair was exposed, the woman leaves her husband because she believes her affair partner will leave his wife. The woman's mom and sister warned her and told her that he will never leave his wife, but the woman was arrogant and left her husband anyways. In the end, her affair partner left her, she got fired from her job, and her husband left her and started a successful company, while she went from having a job in finance to living in a small 2-bedroom apartment. Mistresses really think they're special. It's called The Family That Prays. And Alyeska23 says, I feel sorry for the kids and for the ex. OP has just enough awareness of her own shittiness to realize she is a bad person. Cheating husband is a worthless POS. At least the kids have one good mother in the ex. The fact that she's so graceful and even being kind and gentle to a child that isn't hers. Karma rewarded her with a large and loving extended family. Good riddance to her trash husband and his mistress. I wish the ex all the happiness in the world. Our next post is by user ThrowRA-NotMyDad113, titled, Would I be the asshole if I ask my stepdad to walk me down the aisle instead of my dad? When I, 28 female, was 4 years old, my dad cheated on my mum with his now wife, and mum divorced him. She got 50-50 on the custody. I hated going to my father's house because I didn't want his wife to tell me what to do. My dad reduced his time when he got married. I was 6 at that time and wasn't even invited to his wedding, but his stepkids were. His excuse was that I'm still bitter and will ruin the ceremony. Over time, he only paid just the child support, and I was completely neglected. When my dad had my half-brother, he was busy with him and ignored me. He even stopped taking me to his house for the weekends. He would ignore me. He would tell me that he wouldn't talk to me unless I act like a good child, aka call my stepmom Mom rather than her name. He would make excuses not to take me to ice cream or do any activities. There was a time when I graduated elementary school, and he promised that he and I would go fishing. He ghosted me and told my mom that there was an emergency. I was again abandoned. By that time, my mum had started dating my stepdad, Lenny. Lenny was the father that I never had. He was a single dad, but he still treated me like his own child. He taught me how to swim, how to drive my car. He attended all the school functions I was in. He was there every time my dad abandoned me. I went very low contact with my dad, only contacting him on Christmas. I don't even call him on Father's Day. So fast forward to now, I'm getting married. I've asked Lenny to walk me down the aisle because he is the only dad that I've ever known. My dad and his family will be coming as guests. This infuriated my dad. He told me that I am his only daughter. I shouldn't keep him away from his rights as a father. I'm getting calls from his side of the family too. My father is upset and I'm sidelining him. According to him, he's been a great father and I'm being unfair to him. Also, he doesn't want Lenny to walk me down the aisle at all. I told my dad he can walk his stepdaughter down the aisle and he will only be a guest. I've made my decision. He called me an asshole and told me that he didn't pay his child support just so I could grow up to be an ungrateful brat. So, was I wrong? I know he's my dad, but I just don't feel like he is. I guess my opinion on this situation is tough tits, Dad. Sucks to be you. Paying child support in this situation is less than the bare minimum. This guy's selective memory is going absolutely crazy. He just forgets all the absolutely terrible behavior that he has exhibited and put her through. I'm honestly surprised that OP is even inviting him to the wedding in this instance, as I don't feel as though he deserves that spot. Call that a terminally online take all you want, but if it were me in this situation, Dad would not be coming to my wedding, and those that supported him in that stance, not coming to the wedding either. It is my day, it is about me and my happiness and my bride's happiness. I would cut them out. I support OP for having a titanium spine in this instance and being able to cop all of this, and still have them at her wedding. Absolutely not the asshole for this situation. I don't know how you could think you are, but hey. In the comments, The Last Word 63 says, just tell him he's still bitter and will ruin the ceremony. Uninvite him. Edit to add, definitely not the asshole. OP could also tell him that he may have been a good dad, it just wasn't to OP, and the only one who's acting like a brat is the one who is supposed to be the father. I wouldn't tell him that. Walking your daughter down the aisle is a privilege, not a right. He may have fathered her, but he sure as hell wasn't a good dad. Not the asshole at all. My wife chose not to have her father walk her down the aisle as she has a similar relationship with him as you describe. It isn't his right to walk you down the aisle because he donated some DNA. You owe him nothing. Seems like Lenny has earned that right. Get Lenny, your father, to walk you down the aisle. Sperm man can do one. Have a wonderful and magical day. Not the asshole. Your wedding day is about you and your partner. You need to feel comfortable and confident, not go around appeasing other people's wishes and desires. It's their job to put those aside and prioritize you. If they can't do that, that's on them. I think it's lovely that you're honoring your stepdad, Lenny, this way. He's been there for you time and time again, and he will appreciate this more than you think. I'm sure the symbolism of this decision is a little painful for your dad, but it is what it is. He was absent and didn't make much of an effort, and now he's shifting the blame on you. Not okay. Don't feel bad. He was the adult who could have made things right with you a long time ago. In short, you do you and enjoy your special day however you want. Update. Sorry guys, I didn't get time to respond to the replies, but I did read them in my spare time. I'm currently at the airport waiting for our plane to our honeymoon, so I thought I should give you an update. And I got married 2 days ago. I can say that I'm relieved to know that people don't think I'm doing the bad thing, so I did just that. I just texted Dad that I'm not changing my decision. If he wants to come to the wedding, he can. I'm not going to force him. Well, that didn't work. He called my mum and asked to talk to me about this situation. I was hoping he would drop this, but no. He had to act as an entitled person. I wrote him a long-ass message. I didn't want to talk to him without getting interrupted. My dad interrupts a lot. I told him to give me one good reason that I should let him walk me down the aisle when he never had been a dad in my life. He never cared enough to make his marriage work with Mom and decided to betray her and our family. Despite all of that, I still loved him, but every single time he left me and abandoned me. Lenny has been my dad growing up. I doubt he even knows anything about me. He's just some guy who used to pay my child support and with whom I share DNA. He is nothing like my dad because he missed all of the big events in my life. He never cared, or even tried to be there for me, and he has the audacity to call me his daughter. Since he didn't do his fatherly duties, I don't think that I should do any daughter duties towards him. How can he possibly think that he could give me away when he already gave me away 20 years ago? A few minutes go by and then he calls me and asks if this is what I've thought about him my entire life. I asked him where was he when I was graduating? Where was he when I won my first prize in dancing competition? Where was he when I needed someone to guide me? I dare him to tell me one thing about me. How much does he know me? When was the last time he initiated any conversations with me? He went silent. He asked me if I was still mad about the past. I told him the past was the reason I know he's an unreliable man. All these years, if he's taught me anything, it's that he's a shitty father and someone like him cannot be trusted. I made the biggest mistake of my life believing he would come through. The only reason I never even bother because of what he did in the past. Lastly, I will not push him to come to my wedding. That's his choice. It's not like he's paying for it anyway. And that was it. Later, I got a message from my stepmom that what I said has broken my father. He's very much upset. I told her, well, if he's upset by the truth, then he shouldn't have asked and pushed my buttons. He's ignored me all my childhood. He doesn't get to play the dad. Although, my wedding went smoothly. I would say the majority of my father's side of the family had bailed. I had my mum's side and some of Lenny's family as well, but overall, it was fine. I cannot be more thankful to Lenny, though it still hurts getting betrayed by my own dad, but I'm okay. My kids will know Lenny as their grandfather. In the comments, Hemanucha says, quote, he went silent. He asked me if I was still mad about the past. Good grief. Way to try and shift the blame to the victim. What a jerk he is. A good friend of mine didn't have her father walk her down the aisle. She had her mother do it. Her dad was invited to the wedding, but he was just another guest. You did the right thing. He didn't come. In a way, I'm glad he and his wife skipped it because I would be worrying about his sulking face. Just a thought. Have you thought about asking Lenny to adopt you? Adult adoptions are a thing. I adopted my used-to-be stepson when he was 23. Never really thought about it. Lenny is married to my mum, so it never occurred to me that I needed to be adopted. He always treated me like his child. He basically adopted me, but we never finalized the papers. I've been contemplating it with my stepdad as a Father's Day present or for his birthday. I say do it. Like I said above, it's worth it and sends a strong message to your stepdad that you are his and he is yours. Family isn't always blood. It's who steps up and takes responsibility and gives love for no other reason than there is love there. Sugar Mama 76 says, "You broke his fantasy that he was a good father. That's what his current issue is. Stepmom can pound sand because she wasn't the one that suffered. It's amazing how abusers want everything to be in the past. Glad to hear the wedding went well. Your real father, Lenny, is the man. I bet he's gonna spoil his grandchildren relentlessly. Enjoy your life with your chosen family. You earned it. Congrats on the wedding. You did the right thing. Being a dad is more than just being part of creating a life. It's a lifelong process involving time, effort, and love. Your bio dad refused to call him dad, thought paying child support was enough, but now realized that he's hurt you and abandoned you. You don't consider him a father as he's never tried and doesn't know the wonderful person that you've become. It's his loss anyway. Enjoy the honeymoon. He couldn't even get over himself, put himself aside, and show up for her here. The truth hurts, and what hurts worse is a little kid being constantly disappointed by a grown adult. And even after all his talk of being dad, he still didn't go. Yup. This was his opportunity to show that he had listened to what she said, respected her decision, and might be some potential to rebuild a relationship. But nope. Instead, he had a tantrum and yet again failed to show up for his daughter. I worry all the time whether I'm doing the right thing or not, whether my motives are pure enough, whether someone might have the right to resent me. And then I see people like OP's dad who apparently have zero insight into themselves or the effect they have on the world. It's wild. Man's really like, wow, did you think that I was a bad dad this whole time? Did you notice how much you weren't doing, mate? My takeaway is, I could probably stand to worry less and they need to worry a lot more. But also, it helps with understanding why some people are the way they are. They actually don't have the ability to self-examine, so they just do whatever without counting the cost. I think that's a skill that can be taught, to an extent at least. But a lot of people don't have anyone to teach them, and it's hard to pick up that habit as an adult. Not an excuse for being a shit, but I have some empathy. Imagine not understanding why people react to you the way they do, and having no idea how to change it. It must feel like everyone's just out to get you for no reason. So of course you act mad and hurt, and act even worse, and pretty soon you've effed up your entire life, without ever realizing how or why. Yeah, I'd like to end this story with that sentiment. I feel like a lot of people in this world could do with some self-reflection and realizing why they have an impact on others, how they're impacting others, and how they can change for the better. I feel as though it may be a bit too late for the father in this story to do that. Instead of stepping up for his daughter and changing and being the better person, he decided to abandon her on her wedding day. It's alright, not like she isn't used to that anyway. Just another one of those fun things in life, isn't it? And unfortunately, like this last comment said, he probably won't even think about it. No self-examination, just, oh, I'm just gonna do whatever, not gonna count the cost of this. It's gotta be everyone else that's the problem, not me. But yeah, I'd love to know what you guys think of this one down in the comments below. Any similar experiences? I think my boyfriend is trying to baby trap me. I've been dating my boyfriend for a year. I live with him. My family life isn't great. My dad has been out of the picture for as long as I remember, and my mum is very mentally unstable. She's been diagnosed BPD, but isn't on treatment. She's always been a very jealous person. She showers you with love and affection, but if you don't do the same for her, she will blow up. I've seen her do that to all of her partners and to me. She has been against me doing anything other than staying home with her for as long as I remember. She's against me having friends, studying for school, working out, etc., always putting me down for anything. She has had better and worse times, and the last year has been one of her downs. She went absolutely mental when she found out I had a boyfriend. She tried to prohibit me from seeing him, made scenes whenever I spent time with him, saying that I am changing her, etc. went as far as trashing my room when I left for a whole day. One day I came home, and she told me that I either stay with her and break up with him, or when I leave, she will change the locks and never let me come back. I called my boyfriend crying, and he offered for me to move in with him. I agreed. She sent me a picture of her burning everything that I had in my room, that she never wants to see me again, and that I'm a terrible daughter. She made posts on Facebook calling me a hua, etc. Everything's been going okay until a week ago. I came back from school and told him that we had vocational orientation and that a nurse had come to tell us about her career. I told him I thought what she did was really cool and I would love to be a nurse. He asked me if you had to study to be a nurse, and I said that you had. It was about 3 years, I think. He then asked me when we would get married, and I laughed and said, I don't know, maybe after I finish the career. He frowned and said that he wanted to have kids young. I told him that we could, just not that young. We still had plenty of time, and I thought that it was best for the both of us to have careers before having kids. There wasn't any rush. He then said that he was running late for work, and the conversation was cut short. He has since then done something really weird, in which he starts talking semi-sarcastically about when I start studying, and asking me things like if I'm going to go to parties, or make more friends, or if I'll still have time for him. When I ask him why he's talking like that, he'll deny using any tone. He's also started to try and convince me to have sex without a condom, saying that he'll pull out. One time he even went as far as ignoring me asking him to put a condom on and trying to go in me, and he stopped just because I screamed at him. 3 days ago, I saw him doing something with the drawer where we keep our stash of condoms open. When he saw me, he closed it quickly. I grew suspicious and went to look at them after he left. Some of them had little dots in them that had been poked. It was just 1/4 of them, so I feel like if I bring this up, he'll deny it and say some were just broken. The other day, I asked him that if he wanted to have sex without a condom, maybe I should start doing hormonal birth control, and he said those pills make you fat, and he doesn't want me being fat. He also made fun of me, saying that I'm being so dramatic about being scared of getting pregnant, like it was a curse or something. I've thought about talking it out with him and reassuring him that me wanting to go to college doesn't change anything about our relationship, and we still have plenty of time to form a family, but maybe I'm being naive. I really do love him, and I don't want to end this relationship. Up until now, he has been the biggest blessing. I don't know what else to do. I don't have access to my own money to get my own birth control without him. I live with him. I don't have anywhere else to go. In the comments, Kinky and Colo says, I realize that some of this is kind of sex-related, but what you need here is not sex advice. You need some serious help to get out of this situation, and this is absolutely not the right place for this. Make some calls, police, fire department, hospital, doctor, whatever, and get referred to a women's shelter as soon as possible. Poking holes in condoms is sexual assault. In Canada, a conviction for this has been upheld by the Supreme Court in 2014. Edit, I see you say you don't have any other place to go. Maybe a local women's shelter or something similar might help. Oh god, you're 17 and he's 23, right? Do you have any other extended family? Father, grandparents, aunts and uncles, close family friends? Anyone? You need to get away from this man ASAP. And if you stay, you have to stop having sex with him, or you will be pregnant by the end of the month. Edit, I just saw that you said you're from Argentina in another sub. Look for shelters and NGOs who help minors like yourself. OP says, my family all lives in another province like 1,200 kilometers away, and I've seen them a handful of times in my life. I only know my father's socials, but I doubt he wants to see me. He has very much spent a good portion of his life trying to get away from my mum and not have anything to do with any of us. He now also has another wife and 3 other kids. Over Remorse replies, I think it's worth it to seek help from your family. Explain that your situation is dire. Someone must take you in. I mean, you've also had to get away from your mum, so I think you can understand where he's coming from. Also, he might well have distanced himself from you because he knew that would mean that your mum would get involved. OP replies, my mum eventually gave up on trying to get him back in her life, and since then, I've seen him like 3 or 4 times when he comes to visit his friends in the city. My mum was never opposed to me seeing him, but he just didn't care much. Once when I was like 8, my mum insisted that he took me out for a couple of hours, at least, and he took me to a coin game site alone when an hour after I didn't have any money left and I couldn't find him anywhere, and I just waited for him. Eventually, 2 hours later, he showed up. He had went to say hi to some friends in a bar. And now on to the update, titled, It Isn't Normal, Is It? A couple of hours ago, I asked for help in a couple of subs for a specific situation with my boyfriend. Many people gave me advice and made me feel like I wasn't crazy, which I genuinely appreciate. But a lot of advice I was given revolved around me leaving or taking action behind his back. I started thinking, and I don't think the dynamics of our relationship are standard. It would be really hard for me to hide something from him. He takes care of everything money-related. Which makes sense because he makes the money, but it's to the extent that I don't remember him ever giving me cash, not even to buy the simplest, cheapest items. Whenever we need something, he goes and buys it, from groceries to clothes to everything else. He has made me wait in stores with the things we need for the house for him to come to where I am and pay. Even when he charges my public transport card, he asks me how many trips I need to make and charges exactly the money for them, not 1 cent more. I have access to absolutely zero money. I used to think that it was just a quirk of his, but I now feel like it's deliberate. My phone doesn't have a plan. I just use Wi-Fi and have him as my emergency contact if I'm outside the house. I don't have any friends or really any type of relationships that he also isn't friends with. All my friends are people he knew first. If I do anything without him, he insists on dropping me off and picking me up. He asks me for selfies of what I'm doing every hour of the day if we're apart. He convinced me to delete together all of our conventional social media, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok, claiming it's better for our mental health. But then he didn't delete his because he realized he needed them for his job. He doesn't know English, and he started complaining whenever I consume any media in English, claiming that it makes him feel left out, and he wants to be able to engage in my hobbies. With people recommending me to search for narcissistic abuse and other comments, I started to rethink most of the things that I never really put much thought into or minded about. Maybe he's been controlling all along, and I just didn't oppose any of his requirements until now. I guess I'm just used to having no control. With my mum, it was the worst. At least he lets me enjoy myself. She would try to make me feel miserable every hour of the day. But at the same time, it's so much worse. Outside of empty threats, there was very little that she could do after I was 13 or 14. She is fat and old, and I have little respect or love for her. She could trash my room or scream or not feed me all she wanted, but she couldn't retain me physically. With him, outside from being way stronger than me, I love him so much. I can't even picture myself ever finding the strength to leave. It really physically pains me to write this. I feel like I'm delusional, and I want to be. I feel like such an empty shell of a human being. Thought I had control of my life for once, and I'm just in the same spot. And now, onto the second update. Hi guys, I have a smallish update. People told me to contact my father's family for help. I tried, and he smoothly told me that he does not care. I have no close friends who aren't friends with him to reach out to, and there isn't a woman's shelter in my city. I'm also very adamant about not contacting the police because my country's child laws are very strong on putting blood bonds almost over every type of abuse that is not full-blown crude sexual or physical abuse. I do not want to go back to my mum's house under any circumstances. I know there's a possibility that this isn't going to work out, and the way he was acting wasn't okay, but he's been so good to me since now. I feel like he deserves the benefit of the doubt. I spent the weekend trying to avoid having sex. I claimed I had a bruised cervix, which did happen before, so he understood and didn't push it further than just asking for oral a couple of times, which I don't mind. He did make one weird joke on Saturday when I got out of the shower, and he said something along the lines of, "If you don't let me get what's mine, I'll have to just get in myself." I guess he could see my facial expression that I didn't find it funny, and he assured me that he was just joking. I genuinely believe that it was just a joke that came off the wrong way. I managed to talk to a school friend and ask for help. Today, we skipped the first period and went to a nearby salita. I don't know how to describe it in English, but it's a very small hospital for neighborhoods. I got a birth control shot. I hoped that I would be able to get a 3-month one, but they didn't have any, so I have to go back every month to get it on the same day. I still think it's better than pills because that means I don't have to hide any item, and it was free, thanks to the girl in Argentina that sent me the link to them. Later, I started stressing about what would happen if the day of the month falls on the weekend and I don't have school to use as an excuse, but I still have many months to go, so that's a future me problem. I will try to stand my ground on him using condoms though. I know I need some type of backup plan if the situation goes south, so I applied for government aid that's supposed to be for high school students from public schools, and it's supposed to help you with money for uniforms or school supplies. It's not much, but I thought that if I created a Mercado Pago account, which is PayPal for Argentina, that I can create from my home and put my money there in investing mode, I can help it all not disappear from the inflation. I still don't know if I'm going to get accepted because it has a restriction on your parents' income, and I'm not sure how much they are making currently. If he still doesn't want me to study when I turn 18, I can apply for a program that helps you for 3 months financially for people who are suffering domestic violence. The program seems too good to be true though, so if someone in Argentina is reading this, can you tell me if it's as accessible as it seems? Today was such a shitty, weird day. When I got home from school and he got home from work, I saw him and just started crying uncontrollably. He didn't ask me anything, he just held me and told me not to worry and that everything was going to be okay and that he was going to take care of me. I don't know if he had his own theory on why I was crying or if he didn't want to bother asking, but I ended up falling asleep while hugging him. It made me feel like a hypocrite. I feel like for the last few months, for the first time in my life, I was just able to have my guard down and not walk on eggshells, so it kind of sucks being back to analyzing everything that someone says, or does, or makes me do. I woke up like 2 hours ago, and he went back to work, so now I'm writing this not knowing how to feel. And now onto the third update. If I take a computer that my boyfriend bought me, can I get into legal trouble? My boyfriend has been having a lot of violent activities, and I need to get out of the relationship. But I'm kind of tied to him because I don't work, and he supports me. I don't have any money that belongs to me, and I don't have many people in my life to ask for help. Several months ago, he bought a laptop for me to use primarily, but he uses it too. I thought about taking it and maybe selling it if I need the money. Can he sue me and put me in a legal bardo? I'm underage. I'm not so interested in the legal implications per se, but by complaining about it, he can get the police to find out where I am and then have access to me back. I'm 17 if it makes a difference. In the comments, Electrical Lettuce 281 says, "Hello. If the computer was invoiced in your name, then nothing happens. But if it was invoiced in his name and you don't have a way to verify that he gave it to you, selling someone else's property as your own is a crime and also generates civil liability. In short, yes, it can bring you legal problems. But beyond that, if you suffer violence, you have other alternatives. Go to the women's police station in your city, call 144, or even in the municipality, they can guide you." OP says, "He billed it, but I don't think he would have kept the bill in a million years. Is it different? I know that the legal thing to do would be to go to the police, but it's a small city where many people love him very much, with no wives' house, and they would probably just send me back to live with my old lady, which is the same thing. Well, before people come to judge you for the obvious bad decisions that led you to this inevitable situation, remember that nothing happens. You already realized the bardo that you're in, and you have intentions of leaving, and I congratulate you. Now, regarding the laptop, it seems to me that it's looking for a bard without any need. Not even by the police, but do you really want to give a violent guy the excuse to look for you? Go quietly." OP replies, "Yes, I already know that it's screwed up. The thing is that I really don't even have 10 pesos in my name. I want to take a bus to a city where I used to live, and I'm trying to think about the things that I can sell quickly or where I can get easy money to go." And now onto the final update, titled, "Last week I left my partner. I don't know if I should go to the police." I used this account to ask for advice a couple of times to know if my partner was being abusive or if I was just being dramatic. You guys were right. From my first post, things just went downhill. I feel like he could sense that I wanted to leave and became more hostile. From slight controlling acts, it escalated to plain violence, physically and sexually. On top of that, I found him cheating and a lot of other worrying stuff on his phone, but that alone would take me a whole post. I didn't know how to leave. I had no money or anywhere to go. At the perfect time, I remembered a very specific figure from my past that had almost left my mind between traumatic events, who had promised to help me if anything wrong happened to me. I'm sorry this is vague. I do not want to give identifiable information. She agreed to help me. So without thinking about it too long, I left him a note explaining why I was leaving without saying where to, and I left with like 2 t-shirts and my phone charger. This was last week, Monday. The person who has helped me escape has been nothing short of wonderful and the most loving human being, but that sadly hasn't made this past week any less horrifying. He tried contacting me on all platforms that we have, and I answered all of his first messages, explaining I am okay, but I don't want to go back, and blocked him afterwards, except for email just in case. He started sending messages saying that he couldn't live without me, asking me to come back. Then they fluctuated to full walls of paragraphs saying how much he hated me and how much of a horrible human being I am, and threatening physical violence. He then sent me a message with a folder with nude pictures that he had of me, saying that he would share them if I didn't agree to see him. The pictures are half pictures of myself I knew he had, but they really don't show anything that would gain me a ban on Instagram. They're just suggestive. There are a whole other bunch of pictures that I sent him on limited time, agreeing to his persistence for them, and I had specifically asked him not to screenshot. But, oh well. In these pictures, I specifically didn't show my face or any defining feature that would tell that it's me. The real issue comes with a couple of pictures that he added where I'm fully naked and you can recognize that it's me. I didn't take or consent for these pictures to be taken. He had taken them while I was asleep or distracted. I don't think he would be dumb enough to share this because I'm a minor, and doing so would F up his life way more than it would mine. But still, it scares me so much. His actions don't end here. He then proceeded to say that if I didn't answer, he would find where I was and go kill me. My mum and a school friend asked where I was because he had gone by their houses, demanding to see me and threatening them if they didn't let him in. I made the terrible mistake of telling my mum where I was and what was going on. She didn't have much of a response other than telling me that it was my fault and that I deserved it because she always told me that he was bad news. Well, turns out my ex-boyfriend's mum called mine crying and pleading with her to convince her that I return home with him because she feared for his mental health and life if I didn't. And the piece of shit I have the displeasure of calling my mum told her where I am and who I'm with. She informed me of this, and her excuse was that she knows how hard it is to be a mother, and she empathizes with her because I'm a horrible human being that keeps hurting people. Since this, he has just sent me one email saying he knows where I am and nothing else. I am incredibly terrified and haven't left the house. Who I'm staying with has encouraged me to file a lawsuit against him because then I can ask for state help, and I do have some evidence. I don't know what is the value of the evidence. I have the emails, screenshots from his phone talking to his friends about me and low-key admitting to sexually abusing me, pictures of marks he's left on me, and a video of him hitting the door that I'm hiding against, screaming, threatening to hurt me. I never till today thought of taking legal action. This whole experience has made me feel so weak. I feel if one more person starts questioning me, I will lose my sanity. I just want to move on with my life and leave everything that has to do with him behind. I am from a very small town, and people love him and his family. I feel that even if I have all the evidence in the world, the average person will still be on his side. I am an outsider with a mum known for losing her marbles. The only really weird thing that gave me a little bit of hope is that today one of the girls in his friend group contacted me and asked if I was okay and to know my side of the story. She said she had her suspicions one night when we went to hang out with his friends, and he had gotten really drunk and really mad at me. She said she had seen him throwing and pushing me around. I hadn't even realized he was doing so. She said she believed me, and she was proud of me for leaving. She has no reason for believing me over him or reaching out, and it made me feel less crazy. I don't know if legal action will bring me more safety or just more mess. I don't care about justice anymore. I just want to live. And that is the last post that OP has provided for us for 4 months. Since then, their account has gone inactive, and all I can say is, I hope that you are still alive, OP, and I hope that your absence is just because you're building a legal case against this guy and doing something, anything that you can do against this man. I can't imagine how scary it would be to be trapped in a situation like this, and I don't fault you for telling your mother, but I can see that you telling your mother was the biggest mistake you could have made here. Perhaps it's time to move on to another area that he doesn't know your whereabouts and try and find security elsewhere, as hard as that would be now. In the comments, Saki Cherry says, "This one I really wish wasn't real, but unfortunately it likely is. I hope OP is okay." As a woman from Argentina, trust me, it probably is. Femicide is a big issue here, sadly. In small towns in which Catholicism and purity culture are the norm, it makes for shit like this to happen. All the major resources for women who suffer from violence are in the big cities. Yes, small-town law enforcement is also questionable, especially if they're friends with the man's family. It makes me so mad how common this is, and you can scream about it until you're blue in the face, and it still falls on deaf ears. OP is from Argentina, but I don't know until she mentioned it, and it's sad because this story is so familiar and common that I think that it resonates with so many women all around the world. I believe it 100%, even not being from Argentina, because the pattern of abuse is so recognizable. Not only real, very common. Most end up dead by ex-boyfriend, homeless, or back to other abusive relationships, usually sprinkled with prostitution and drugs. Being a homeless woman with no family support and no diploma is dark, much worse in a third world country. Would I be the arsehole if I didn't let my daughter's father into her life? For some background, when I, 20 female, was 16, I was in love with Matt, who was 2 years older than me. We were just friends until we started spending more time together, but we never really put a label onto our relationship, and he always dodged answering when I would ask him if we were exclusive. It wasn't long before we started sleeping together. We kept this up for a few years, and around the time I was turning 18, I found out he joined the Air Force in honor of his deceased father. He promised to keep in touch, but did the exact opposite. To my surprise, he left me a gift in the form of a baby, and I had a hard decision to make. After hearing the heartbeats, I couldn't deny that I wanted the child, and decided to keep the child, and eventually gave birth to a beautiful baby girl, naming her Jade. But because our relationship was pretty hush-hush, I decided not to tell anyone who the father was. I told everyone I didn't know who he was, and it costed me my reputation. With the support of my parents and very few friends, I was able to raise my daughter into the adorable little girl that she is today, and she turns 2 years old in just a few days. Well, earlier today I went shopping with my daughter, and I bumped into Matt. Apparently he's returned. I tried to ignore and avoid him, but he started chasing after me and asking questions about my daughter. I paid for our stuff and got home, but he followed me. It didn't take him long to piece anything together and realized that Jade was our daughter. He started begging me to be in her life. I don't really trust him to be in her life, but I'm starting to feel guilty. I don't want him to not have a relationship with his own daughter, but I don't want him to hurt her like he hurt me. Would I be the arsehole if I told him to stay the hell away, or should I give him a chance with her? I guess with this limited information, the only thing he did wrong was ghost you, which is very common in this day and age, and it's not an indictment on his character if he has changed. I don't think they are mutually exclusive. I think you can ghost someone and still be a good father. That seems to be the only bad thing he did wrong, as well as not really put a label on your relationship. You guys were young, that's very common. It's not the end of the world in my opinion. I think you would be the asshole for denying him the opportunity to see his daughter. In the comments, Primary Criticism 929 says, "You chose to punish Matt for trying to do something with his life by not telling him he had a daughter. You're the asshole. You're even more of an asshole because now you're refusing for your daughter to have her father in her life. Unless he has ever been violent with you, you have no reason to not want him in her life." OP replies, "I tried my best to contact him and he either had me blocked or chose to ignore me. If his mother knew I was pregnant, she would have immediately sued me for custody and taken Jade from me. Matt is not consistent. He only wants to be in her life because he wants to get to me. I don't care what he's done to me, but I know he will think of her as too much work and will drop her. He will end up hurting her, and that's what I want to avoid the most." They reply to OP, "You don't know that Matt's mother would have sued you for custody or that she would have won. You are the mother. That is all that matters. As for Matt, you don't know anything either. You're assuming things. It has been 2 years." OP replies, "Our families were close until Matt's father died, and then for some reason she had hated my family after that. She would chase me away if she learned that we were together, and he would let her. His mum told me herself while I was pregnant, if it was his, she would sue me and take the baby away. That's when I started saying that I didn't know who the father was." Armadillo Days says, "You're the asshole. Like it or not, he is the father. If you keep up the denial, he can pursue this in court, and you'll be forced to submit samples for paternity testing. With paternity established, you and he will be on equal footing with the court. Custody-wise, only he'll be able to argue that you're a deceitful liar who hid his child from him, and he should get primary custody since you can't be trusted, and the court will have already seen you stonewalling. Your child has 2 parents. You were an asshole for not telling him you were pregnant. You are an asshole for depriving him and Jade of 2 years' worth of experiences, and you are an asshole for trying to keep him out of her life. OP replies, he would never pursue me in court because that would mean that he would have to admit that we slept together and had a form of a relationship with me to his mother. ECJ 2010 replies, you were still assuming. You made a post asking if you were the asshole, you were getting the answers you asked for, and yet you're arguing with everyone who is saying the same thing with slightly different wording. You're the asshole. At least give him the chance to prove you wrong. If you are proven right, then you stop. And now, on to the update, titled, I let my daughter's father into her life after being judged on Reddit. I regret it. So, I told a friend that knew both me and Matt pretty closely, and she had become my best friend. She decided to have her brother draw up a contract for me to use so that I can safely have Matt in Jade's life without me having to worry. I told Matt, and we both signed the contract, and my friend had her brother do this thing to notarize it. The first thing he asked me once everything was signed was that if this meant we could sleep with each other again. I said no, and stayed firm that this wasn't for us, this was for them. It wasn't long before I learned that he was engaged to someone else anyway, so I was confused on why he even asked. Whenever he came to see Jade, he would complain about his fiancée and how his mum is making him marry her. I didn't say anything about it until he started flirting with me and asking to be with me. I told him that he's engaged, and I'm not going to be the other woman, and neither is my daughter. He proceeds to bring her to the place I work at and break up with her there, which in turn, she comes up to me and tells me that people talk and she knows what I've been doing. I felt guilty about it at first, but Matt really stepped up after that happened. He became even more attentive towards Jade and spent as much time with her as possible, and even revealed himself as the father to my parents and everyone else. I found myself hoping for us to become a family and rekindling my feelings for him. He convinced me that he was serious about us, and I began sleeping with him again. I had found out from someone else that he was going to be sent out again, and I confronted him and asked if he was going to tell me. He said he was, and that this time he will keep in contact with me and Jade. He went and was doing okay for a while. He contacted us every Friday, but then suddenly, he stopped contacting me. He wouldn't answer my calls or texts. It was like the past all over again. I tried asking his mum, and she just brushed me aside and told me to do a DNA test so she can either take custody of Jade or take me to court for falsifying Matt as the father. It didn't help that I learned that he was engaged once again to that woman, and I learned that I was pregnant once again. This is where my update ended, but now I have more, which inspired me to come back to Reddit. It's been 8 months since then, and I've moved into a new house and have left my old house behind. I wish I could say that I found a new love, but that's not the case. I don't even think I'd be capable of finding someone new right now with 2 kids under my belt. I've been scared to get back out there after my experience with Matt, but that's not what I've been posting about. I think I'm afraid of what would happen when he returns in a few months. I don't know if he would come looking for us again, or if I should even let him back into our lives. I've tried for months to get a hold of him with no success. I've even tried letters, going through friends, etc. My best friend's brother has a friend that's in his unit, and they can use phones, have service and such, but I have no idea why he pulled the disappearing act again, or why he's engaged and set to marry that woman again. Jade stopped asking for him months ago, just after he broke her heart. She's cried for him so many times. I'm happy she's forgotten him because she's back to her usual happy-go-lucky self. But I really don't think I'm going to make the same mistake again and let him back into our lives. It's better without it. So you guys can judge me and tell me I'm horrible, but I know what's best for my daughter and now my son. Thank you for reading this far, and I hope I won't have to update again. To those of you that supported me, thank you. Edit. I also posted this in the comments. I want to say, it's hard being so harshly judged again. My blinders for my feelings towards Matt has really caused some real issues for me and my family, and I know that's my own fault and no one else's. No, Reddit didn't tell me to sleep with him again. Reddit told me to have him in her life, which is what I did. Sleeping with him was on me, and I do know that. I should have stopped him when he refused to wear condoms. I should have just said no to sleeping with him. That's on me, and I already know that. My thing was that the community harshly shamed me for keeping Matt from Jade when I knew he was in it to get to me. But I gave him the benefit of the doubt because I did agree that Jade should have her father in her life. I've read most of the comments, and I've decided to look into getting a lawyer. I won't allow Matt in again because him leaving again really woke me up. To those who think that this is fake or there's some story out there that sounds like mine, I'm sorry you feel that way. I wish this was some story, but this is really happening to me, as unfortunate as it is. The reason I left out so much for my original post was honestly because of the word count limits. I didn't know that leaving it out would cause such a harsh judgment. In the comments, Lady Norbert says, OP should use that contract to sue Matt for child support and get a restraining order against his mother. He's military. Once his command knows he's got children he abandoned, shit's gonna get ugly for him. She's guaranteed child support, and also she should be able to get benefits, medical, for the kids, as long as he's in the Air Force. The government will automatically take the child support out of his pay, and there is nothing that he can do about it. She also needs to get the custody papers filed. He's abandoned her twice now, and doesn't really have a leg to stand on. Also, have a lawyer advise on how to deal with his mother, what steps she should take to protect herself and the children. That woman has no rights to the kids, wealthy or not. I believe she can get free legal service through the Air Force. The only stipulation, I think at least, I know of, is only one of the two parties can use JAG services, so the sooner she moves on it, the better. Yeah, I was wondering about that. Him being military is a whole different ballgame than trying to get child support and whatever else out of a run-of-the-mill deadbeat through the normal family court system. Unless things have changed since I dealt with the military, his command is going to rip him a new one and be on her team. Unfortunately, she seems extremely naive, easily scared and influenced, and unless someone used to dealing with military takes her under their wing, she's likely to get screwed over in all of this trying to go through the regular court system. It's really just sad for her more than anything else. The guy is clearly using her and has no intention to make things right. I hope she's able to stay away from him. Her best option seems to be avoid contact. Sadly, if all it takes to convince OP to ignore logic is one Reddit post, I doubt she'll actually stay away if he does this again. She'll keep focusing on the what if. I can see what you guys mean about this cesspool of some Reddit comments. I completely disagree with that last comment. I feel like she has learned her lesson, and all the resources in these comments are great in helping her fix this situation. I don't think you can blame someone as young as OP for being young and naive. I think the biggest mistake here was having sex with him again without condoms and without birth control. Big yikes, don't do that, especially with someone that ghosts you like that, especially someone that's already knocked you up. Though it's not the end of the world, I have seen something very similar to this, with worse circumstances, and that person is now happily with someone else, with a third child and doing amazingly in life. Reddit does love doom and gloom, but it genuinely isn't the end of the world. These situations can be worked through, and can be fixed, and life goes on. Anyway, I'd love to know what you guys think of this one down in the comments below.